Podcast, 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 podcast.
You're digging a hole at a certain point. Once you start going, I guess we've never done one of these main feed before. We never had to do that.
No.
What's a big line from this movie? You have to make a podcast.
You have to pick a podcast.
You have to pick a podcast.
I got
sounds like a
Ethan. You're
limerick.
trying to play 4D chess with a podcast.
You have to podcast aside. What's the Shea Wiggum line? He has his own version of the manifest. He's the living manifestation of destiny.
Oh fuck! What was it?
It's like he's a
something about
shape
chaos?
shift. I'll look it up. I asked Bilga to tell me.
Yeah.
He's a mind reader capable of shape shifting, the incarnation of chaos.
The incarnation
when
of
he's like
chaos,
briefing his men. I, by the way, would be like, can we get a new boss? You seem to have already lost your mind.
Yes.
This guy's right free in your head, and we haven't even started chasing him.
I like how the movies now increasingly have become like he just breaks people's brains. His
right. They're
existence,
just like,
Ethan Hunt.
I don't even want to talk about him.
Right. Because it used to be like when people gave the briefing on what his deal was, they had a sense of control.
Yeah.
And Shea Wiggum is just like, I'm not even fucking his boss. I'm like a middle manager now sent after him. Here's the thing I miss. Is Angela Bassett now the president in the universe of this movie?
Yes.
Yes,
I think that
because her photo is up in the
Yes.
back. Yeah.
Which doesn't make, because she was the head of the CIA, correct?
Yes.
We don't usually elect heads of the Central Intelligence Agency to be president.
No, that's the job.
It's just, you can't really run. You'll be like, well, I did a great job at the CIA. What'd you do? Well, I can't tell you.
I can't
It's
tell you.
classified. Actually, maybe that's a good like brick wall thing during a debate.
Yeah.
My opponent won't even, it's classified. It's out of my hands.
I kept Ethan Hunt under control. Who's Ethan Hunt? Exactly.
Should have said that name.
Yeah.
Forget I said it.
You didn't know.
I would elect Angela Bassett, obviously.
I would.
And I would love to see her in movie 8. Maybe she'll pop up.
I have heard she is in it. I don't know. I think that's public knowledge.
I don't know.
She was very much a COVID thing.
But
Where
I mean,
think
I get
was-
it as well.
right.
Like, put the picture up, and you're just sort of like, "Don't worry, we haven't forgot about Angie. She'll show up."
Which I think this franchise is pretty good at doing it. Like, not generally writing people off and being like, "We don't bring someone back. It doesn't mean they're gone."
Case in point, Kittredge.
Yes,
What about-
exactly.
the big question is Renner.
I mean,
I hope he's dead.
McQuarrie,
He's not dead.
the thing McQuarrie has always said was like he didn't want to come back for Fallout, and there was sort of the choice of like,
Do we kill him off?
Right.
In some interesting way.
Right. And he was like, I would rather keep him alive. And if he ever wants to come back, then I'll use him to the degree that he wants to be used. I don't want to just like kill him off because he's not available.
Yeah, but I mean, there is the unspoken thing of like, but he will have to accept being the fifth fiddle, like,
Right.
or whatever, if he wants to come back, which clearly he didn't like being.
I thought he was so good in Rogue Nation,
He's
so well
good
used.
in both of them.
Yes.
And now there's this retroactive kind of like, yeah, it's sort of annoying to see Renner. I'm like, no, we're not going to pretend Renner didn't have juice.
No, you.
Oh yeah, you were defending
yes.
him on Twitter.
Someone was
this
doing like,
week.
isn't it weird that like everyone offered everything to this guy?
Remember
And you
when
were like,
Renner was
he was coming off of 2 fucking Oscar nominations. The
row.
guy was straight fire.
Well, also the Hurt Locker won Best Picture.
Yes.
And that movie is 50% his performance.
Yes, he should have won the Oscar that year.
Who'd he lose to?
That was the fucking Jeff Bridges year, right?
Oh, right. And we had to give it to Bridges because we hadn't, we'd fucked up prior
Who won
situations.
supporting actor the year that he was nominated for The Town?
That
'Cause I love that
2010.
Which car are we taking? 2010, The Town.
Who wins that year? Jeffrey Rush is nominated, but the winner is because it's the Social Network King's Speech.
I'll tell you in 1 second.
Black Swan.
Christian Bale
of
in The
course.
Fighter.
Oh.
A pseudo lead performance,
Yes.
very transformative
Right.
from a actor who was sort of ready for his Oscar.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I would take that back. I would actually give it to any of the other nominated performances before Bale.
Really?
Really, I think Bale's very good.
I think he's good in The Fighter.
Yeah.
But I think it felt like it was we need to give him an
A
Oscar.
little bit of that,
Yeah.
and also just that. Oh, he lost weight again. Oh,
Yeah.
he looks like
Right.
he looks like shit.
Yeah.
I would give. I mean, Jeffrey Rush is probably the one. Maybe I'd be like, wow, forget Jeffrey Rush.
He was like the steepest competition.
He's good in it. I mean, he's good in that movie. But Jeremy Renner, John Hawkes in Winter's Bone, which is an amazing performance.
Yeah.
And Ruffalo and the kids are all right, which is like
he's really good.
kind of the engine of that movie, like quietly.
Yeah.
Too quiet.
Too quiet?
For the Oscars.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
I thought you were saying for you.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Well, then he fucking yelled in Spotlight and they didn't give him an Oscar either.
They should have.
They knew.
They all
And
know.
they let it happen
They all
to
know.
kids. Anyway,
Renner is not in this movie, but and neither is Bassett. We're talking about two people who aren't in this film.
Who else is not in this movie? Who is left in the MI verse, not dead,
Yeah, I still
to
want
be scooped back in?
Paula Patton to come back.
Yeah, what's she doing?
Not much. She's not remarrying Robin Thicke, which is a great choice. Another great choice would be rejoining the Mission Impossible franchise.
Is Redgrave dead? Well, I guess Vanessa Redgrave, the actress, is dead. So no, she's not.
she's the one
so
who's
she
still
can
alive.
come back.
She's the one of the
She
family
can
who's
come
still-
back.
no, but I
Yes.
think she's dead.
I think they say
in
she's
the
dead in
movie.
this movie.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
was it this movie or was it another movie where Max is introduced and she talks about her mother?
In both of them.
Not Max, sorry, the White Widow.
Yes.
But like,
Kittredge talks about, I think he says your late mother or
Right.
whatever. Yes. No, she's talked about both of them. Yeah.
Then Dewey Newton, can we bring her in?
Yeah, I'm like, bring everyone back.
I'm literally trying to think of who, like Jonathan Rhys-Meyers and Maggie Q are canonically still alive, correct?
Yes.
Like they could come back.
Yeah.
Like what if Maggie Q showed up?
I like the idea of the next film having a team of everyone he's worked with in previous movies.
I mean, there's a point at which I guess you're turning into Rise of Skywalker, I Am All the Jedi, but I'm trying. Who else? Anil Kapoor, could he come back? He doesn't die in Ghost Protocol.
I mean, it'd be weird for him to
I'm
come
still
back.
horny.
Yes. I do think
Leia Seydoux fell out a window.
Michelle Monaghan's still alive.
but
But
we've
Right.
She was bid goodbye.
yes.
That loop was closed.
But
I
we
feel.
should bring Wes Bentley back.
Yeah. And Ethan's like, how's your wife? And
Yeah.
he's like, why do you know so much about her?
What if they bring back Aaron Paul?
Bring him back. He's in 3.
He plays the brother. He plays Michelle Monaghan's brother in
Right,
3.
at the party. Okay.
Or have him die at the start of 8.
Yeah.
And Ethan's so sad, and the audience is like, who is he?
Yeah. Bring Ricky Gervais back. And they like,
Tom Hollander,
you weren't in these. And he was like, yeah, but I
Tom
almost
Hollander,
was.
yeah.
Right. Hollander's
the
the Prime Minister in 5. Okay.
Wolf Blitzer.
Wolf Blitzer.
I mean,
my favorite
he's,
IMF member.
he's coming back. I think. He'll be
Let's
back.
bring Wolf back.
Yeah.
I'm field agent now. I got promoted. I guess that's it.
Look, this is Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
That was so
You're not
fast.
even saying and I'm.
David. I'm David Sims.
David. It's a podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on in their careers and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. And sometimes those checks clear and sometimes they bounce. Baby, now we're in a mini series, in the middle of a mini series right now on Park Chan-wook, our March Madness winner. We're taking a little break to next week talk about Oppenheimer,
True.
Christopher Nolan film. And this week talk about Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, Part 1. A film, I feel like people are still a little unclear on what the punctuation is on this movie.
Mission : Impossible.
Which has always made the subtitles hard on these films.
Correct.
Because you're like, the colon's in the middle of the proper title.
Right.
Is it a double colon franchise? And it's always been Mission : Impossible dash subtitle.
Right.
But then this is adding the Part 1.
Right.
So is
David,
that just
in
a
your
run-on
Atlantic
sentence?
review, Dead Reckoning Part 1 is all one phrase. There's no punctuation.
There's no punctuation. It's Mission : Impossible M dash Dead Reckoning Part 1. You can't. I mean, the only other thing, a comma,
Yeah.
would be grammatically, I suppose, accurate. Dead Reckoning
Slash.
Part 1.
What about parentheses?
Parentheses.
Part 1.
that? Would be just very silly.
Someone's knocking on the door. I can't tell if this is a bit or not. Ben just went to the bathroom and now someone's knocking on the door. I'm going to
Don't
get
love
the
it.
door. No, me neither.
Well, go look out the peephole.
Looks like delivery. Pipe.
No bits.
Okay. Say Pro Smiths.
Cars 2 makes Cars 3.
Look like Cars 1.
Blanket.
Thank it.
Zach.
That guy was handsome.
That guy was really handsome. That guy had the juice. Okay, I want to explain what just happened. Ben went to the bathroom. The door is closed. There's a knock at the front door of the office. We sit here, we're like, what's going on? Is this by mistake? I tentatively rise to the door. You heard all of this. We were recording on this. I rise to the door.
Go right. Just explain it all, please.
This very
Ben has run to the bathroom during
Yes.
all of this.
Yes.
Yes, he's not here.
This very handsome man wearing a bicycle helmet and a reflective vest, like a messenger, just looks at me very intensely and says, no bits. Stone-faced. And I just look at him trying to figure out where this is going. And then, David, you say pro Smiths.
Yep.
Like, oh, this is some fucking...
I understood, I suppose, the game of like, the...
It's a Mission Impossible
Right,
style.
Right, well,
you have to complete the sentence.
But it opens with a DoorDash guy.
It
Right.
does. The new one opens with a
Yeah.
DoorDash guy. So he says, no bits. I say pro Smiths.
Yeah.
He says, Cars
2.
makes Cars 3 look like,
Cars
and I said
1.
Cars 1, and then he said blanket, and I said thank it, and he handed me a manila envelope. And now I'm going to open this. Ben is grinning ear to ear like a Cheshire cat. And inside here, cannot believe this. It says beneath the party. It's just one piece of
Beneath the
paper.
party.
Is that me?
Wait a second.
Like the Bardi
Beneath the
party?
party.
Is it
Is it under the
maybe-
desk?
or is it under the chair?
Is it under the chair, Marie? Marie, is there something under the chair? Marie Bardi is here, along with producer Ben, who is orchestrating some kind of so dark the kind of man.
No, yep, you're almost there. Just look under the chair.
Under the legs of the chair?
Oh, wait.
Oh boy. Okay. Okay, so now there's another.
There's a tape
There's
recorder.
a
There's a
tape
tape-
recorder.
Oh my God! Wait, there must be something
And
on
I don't
that.
know anyone in this room who likes to do bits with tape recorders.
No, and certainly Norm Macdonald died, so that leaves a big void in the world of tape recorder comedy.
Should I press play?
I guess. I
Hold
mean,
it
we
into
should
the
find
mic?
out what it
Yeah,
what it
let's
is.
see what this is. Ben, I had no
All right.
idea this was happening.
Good morning, Mr. Newman and Mr. Sims. In 2016, on a mission known as Pod Reacher Never Go Cast, you first encountered the writer-director Christopher
This
McQuarrie,
is sort of what I was
alias
setting up.
McHugh.
Yeah. Okay.
In the years since, you have recorded Patreon-exclusive episodes covering the 3 other McHugh-directed films,
Correct.
The Way of the Gun,
Yeah,
and the
that's
Missions
what I see.
Impossible Rogue Nation and Fallout, in what some have dubbed the Stealth McQuarrie miniseries.
Correct.
In these encounters, you have confronted an incontrovertible truth, that McHugh, through his alliance with good actor Tom Cruise, has earned blank check status.
I agree with this.
8
Yeah.
days ago, at the AMC Empire 25 in Times Square, you both attended a screening of their latest film, Mission Impossible Dead
Is this
Reckoning
Patrick
Part
Willems?
1.
Is that?
Your mission,
Yeah,
should
okay.
you choose to accept it,
Uh-huh.
is to record a 2+ hour discussion about the film and thereafter release that recording to the public. We have already dispatched a team selected from your usual group. Marie Bardi,
Okay,
codenamed
yep,
Bardi
uh-huh,
Party,
right.
will handle social media and help produce the show.
Are you cool with that?
And Ben Hosley, also known by various aliases,
Sure.
will produce, peep, and detect farts. As always, should you or any member of the BCP force be caught or killed,
Uh-huh.
Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts will disavow all knowledge of your actions. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
Oh my God!
Okay, so Marie threw the tape recorder to the
threw the tape recorder on the ground. It is now without a battery cover or its battery.
Yeah. It's just broken.
Oh my God! But that's not all. It's been me the whole time in a mask that looks exactly like my face.
Okay, so Ben just ripped off a Ben Hosley mask to reveal that he is in fact Ben
I will
Hosley.
also say recording this podcast can be annoying.
Yes.
It can be a bit of a stressor. It's not impossible.
I would say it's impossible.
and it sounds like we're doing a pretty regular task for us.
One would argue I was already
Has the dumbest grin.
I was already making like fairly good progress in setting up the basic idea that then this series of messages assigned me as if it was going to be a challenge.
Well, I think it would have been an impossible task if we had to record the episode within a 30-minute.
That's true. I'm glad they gave us the freedom.
2.5 hours seems very
Stretch
doable
out.
for
It
us.
feels doable. Yes, as that message very clearly outlined, McQuarrie has been a stealth miniseries. Earlier in the days of the show, sometimes David and I would just get hyped up about a new release movie and be like, fuck it, we're doing an episode on this.
Right.
Which now there are enough directors we've covered in the past who have new films coming out that we rarely slot in a new release film outside of the ones we are like obligated to do, because who's got the time?
So many pods to do.
Right.
So many casts.
Even if we like something, we're like, well, maybe we'll cover it later in some other form.
Yes,
or whatever.
no phrase sends a chill up my spine more than emergency episode.
Yes, not happening, right?
Yeah.
But we did, we love the first Jack Reacher.
We do. Look, when we did that Way of the Gun episode, that
Yes.
was us agreeing in a sort of like a silent handshake
Yes.
of like, we will now, McQuarrie is now officially on our list.
Right.
If he does a new movie,
Yes.
we're agreed.
Yeah, because it does feel like, I mean, look, he's continued to say last Mission Impossible, not going back ever again, and then signing up for another one. And this two-parter had been pitched as like the grand finale, and now he's sort of walking that back in the press. But it does feel like he's always talking about his post-mission projects that are very intriguing to me.
But he's never going to do them. Well, maybe one day.
I don't know.
Well, he's got to do 8 now.
Yes.
And then I bet you he gets suckered into doing 9.
I know.
He's already started talking about like, well, this is in the end.
Can I throw out a theory? And this is a Griffin Newman on the record, no inside sources on this. This is just something I think.
Okay.
Okay. They announced that they were doing 7 and 8 back to back. That was an announcement, right? After McQuarrie was like, good luck to the next guy. I wouldn't know how to top myself.
But we knew he was lying.
And then, of course, the surprise announcement, oh, not only is he back, he's doing 2, right? And everyone was like, 2? They're shooting 2 back to back? And the attitude was sort of like, they probably want to get as much stunt stuff while the getting's good. Cruise is on the brink of 60, right? And then a global pandemic and change later, their plans got so stretched out in over the time they had originally allotted to make both movies together. They only got the first one done.
Right.
And this whole thing has stretched out much longer than anyone expected.
Yes.
But the whole announcement was like, they're coming back for 2 final films to close it up. McQuarrie and Cruise are going to just wrap the whole thing up. That had always been the line. And now that he's promoting part 1, he's like, who said? We never said. We never said. We never said. This is my Griffin Newman on the record prediction. I feel like he's got to die in the next one. And if they were advertising it as such, in the way that like Avengers Endgame, everyone was like, Downey Jr.'s contract's up. They're definitely going to kill off Iron Man. We know his contract's up. This thing of like the public being too wise to the machinations of the planning of these movies, that it ruins plot points. If he's like, no, we're talking ideas for 9, that still adds
You
some
think he's
tension.
throwing you off the scent?
That's my guess.
Why does he have to die?
I can't see Ethan Hunt dying.
No.
I can
seems
see
impossible.
him doing a Dark Knight Rises sort of ending where he
Sure.
is
He fakes his
killed
death.
off.
It's
but
finally like time for Ethan to be done. I
right.
could see that.
And he's
but I
living
kinda
on
think
his
it's like-
farmhouse or something.
I just wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't buy him being dead or him retiring. I'm like, nah, he's just always going to be waiting for the next
That's why
possible mission.
But that's why I think he needs to die. I'm just like, this guy isn't going to be freed until he's in the ground.
I'm very anti-death.
In general, or
Yes.
just with Ethan Hunt?
No, in general.
Okay.
As a plot device, as whatever, a sort of stakes raising thing.
Uh-huh.
But then again, this movie does a death that I didn't mind.
Interesting.
So I'm eating my own words.
Yeah. We're talking Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, Part 1.
That's for all the misphoniacs
A
out there.
a film that we all saw a week ago at the time of this recording,
That's right.
and that comes out later this week. We are
yes.
No,
it comes out next week.
Oh,
It
you're
comes
right.
out a week
Yeah,
from
comes out next week.
today.
This week,
right.
it's all about that red door.
Yes.
Creak. What's behind it?
Insidious.
Patrick Wilson's debut as a filmmaker?
5 or 6?
5.
Oh, I forgot he was directing
Yep.
this.
That's where I'm just there, like, we're making another Insidious movie. I'm like, guys, come on. Patrick Wilson's directing it. I'm like, Oh, a little intrigued.
What's his take?
What's his take?
What's his take on the material? Yeah. No, one of those like quietly fucking durable franchises where I just think like, oh, Insidious, those like dropped off after a while, and you're like 4 open to 40.
The advantage of Insidious is, unlike say Saw or Paranormal, it has no particular canon that it needs to maintain.
It doesn't feel caught up in
there's a
its
spirit
lore.
world that has demons in it.
Right.
Sometimes, they start messing with you.
I have never seen any of these movies.
You'd
I've
like
just seen the like still of Patrick Wilson and then like
Little red man
with a little red man behind him smiling
no
like
good.
a maniac.
He's no good.
He's no good.
He's no good.
Now imagine Patrick Wilson behind the camera,
right.
looking in the viewfinder,
Now
the little
Patrick.
red man. Yeah.
There's
in
a little
front.
red man behind you.
Yeah.
No, you'd like them. They're very campy. Like it's that James Wan thing. Very sincere.
Never
very,
seen any of them.
They're good.
And I love one. I love one and Wannell. Yeah. Anyway, Mission Impossible. We saw it a week ago. We have tickets to see it again a
On
week
Monday
from now in IMAX. So we're recording this in the middle of we took the train home, Murray, after the film, and you were just like, am I going to be able to remember all of this a week from now? Because it is a plot heavy movie. I think more than the last couple. I David, you and I have been sharing some takes on
Quietly.
over the text.
But quiet.
Try
kind
not to
of like-
burn them.
Exactly.
But there are a lot of interesting things I think this movie is doing. We're recording this in the space before the public at large gets to see it. Most of the reviews come out.
Well, I think the embargo just lifted right before we started recording.
It did feel like no one's like angry about this movie, but I am sensing that some people are a little disappointed. I think
Yes.
it's just because
Who?
Fallout was like ultimate
I don't wanna
adrenaline
name
rush.
names.
Don't want to name names. It'd be rude.
Well, you know at least a couple people.
Yeah.
Well, Ehrlich kind of came around to it.
Has he?
Yeah, he gave it a B+ and wrote some glowing things about it.
He can go to hell.
Yeah, I give him an A++. This movie. That's what I give it.
Love you, David. I already berated you in text.
You and I have the same stance on this, and I unapologetically love this movie. It got me amped as fuck. It was exactly what I wanted in a summer where I have really been struggling with most of the blockbusters. But that we both felt like this movie is a strategic zag.
Yes, I think so.
The movies have been escalating on a specific line, and it
Mhm.
was like going to be impossible for it to keep on outdoing itself. And it also feels to me like this movie is very pointedly starting to like go back to point one, which is where I like believe that they are consciously trying to wrap this thing up.
I think you're right. But did you pay that guy to say all that stuff?
Yeah, what was the
Does he
what
know
were the
what's going
machinations
on?
of this? Who was that guy?
I was worried it was a fan of the show.
I
who
was
found
too.
our address.
Yeah,
He-
Griff
and
was
we-
actually
yeah,
nervous.
I got
He
scared.
played it so straight
Is
that
he
I
just
almost
like
thought he was a psychopath.
Is
Yeah,
he like
I
a
was
singing
worried.
telegram type of thing?
No,
He just hit his marks, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a friend.
Oh, okay.
He is a friend. Okay.
He is an actor.
Okay.
His name's Theo Olson.
Okay, I mean,
he's a great guy.
Great
Shout out.
performance. We have to
Yeah.
say.
I think he did a
He
fantastic
did really,
job.
he did really well.
Knew his
yeah.
lines. Yeah.
It's just Griff was talking about the series, and I'm like, Wait, what was that?
What
again?
happened there?
I didn't realize the noise was coming from the front door. I thought it was Ben knocking on the door of the bathroom and you were having some sort of bathroom emergency. and
Ben
we had
shit
to like
to go
in
to the
there.
bathroom during that, so we were just left scrambling.
I couldn't help myself. Okay.
No, it was funny. It was really good. 10 comedy points.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That was
and
fantastic.
shout out to Theo.
Theo, as well as Patrick Willems.
Yeah.
Yes, great
Yes.
performances.
I wish
both.
I got a picture of the guy. Is he still here?
We were so like it's hard to convey how disorienting this was.
It was good though.
Yeah.
It was well executed.
It was great.
Yeah.
But the first Mission Impossible, when it came out, the original Brian De Palma film, which we have covered on Patreon, everyone's thing was like, this movie's impossible to follow, right?
That was the beat on it.
You read all the
Absolutely.
reviews at the time, and they're like, this movie is incomprehensible.
That's wild.
Wild. Because it feels just like that movie feels simplistic almost by the standards of how labyrinthian most franchise plotting has become.
It's
No.
true. It's really just like it was John Voight all along, and you're like, okay.
Right.
It has a twisty turny plot. I can't. It's
But
got
also
some,
that thing where it's like there's a lot of jargon, but the jargon doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Which I think people were just kind of not used to, of like, either this is Tom Clancy and this is like well researched, even if it's pulpy,
Sure.
or it's Star Wars and nothing matters. And they're like, this movie is taking place in the real world and everything they're saying sounds silly to me. This movie feels like it's very tonally kind of back to that De Palma zone.
I felt like some of the references were intentional.
Yeah.
Of course, and bringing in Henry Czerny is,
And then
underlining
the final action sequence on a train
is like very much an homage. But there's also this early sequence where there's the briefing that Kittredge is doing with Carrie Elwes on the entity, who we'll talk about a lot, and I think has some really interesting ideas. I think he's got some interesting ideas.
Griffin is entity pilled.
I'm kind of into the entity. I think he's cool. I think he's charismatic, and he's got some good points.
Throws good parties.
But Ben was saying like it was weird, like the way they were talking. It was like everyone was like completing each other's sentences. You have this like boardroom of like Rob Delaney and Mark Gatiss,
Indira Varma.
Yes.
And they're all finishing each other's
and
sandwiches.
Yes.
Charles Parnell,
Warlock himself. Yes.
Do you think Charles Parnell, and also it wasn't Greg Tarzan Davis?
He's the
Maverick guy?
junior member.
He's
Shea
Right.
Wiggums.
Do you think
Yeah.
it was like he makes Top Gun and is like,
Correct.
I want to
Yeah.
bring my two friends on this movie?
a zillion
No.
million percent.
It was
Yeah.
like I think Tarzan Davis has talked about on set. Cruise was like, "Would you want to do this? We're thinking maybe we could like write something for you.
Very nice of him.
We like you."
Your mission, should you choose to accept
Yes.
it. Yeah. Who wouldn't?
Yeah. But like that scene is sort of like very stilted on purpose, as you're saying. It's like very theatrical. It's people like monologuing about like the intensity of the situation.
Yes.
In this way that I do think is like a vibe adjustment.
There's something else about that scene that's very important.
Which is?
It's like them all being like, can we once and for all get down on paper? What is the IMF?
Yes.
What is its position in the U.S. intelligence community?
Yes.
What are they called on for? Like, what is their specific remit?
Right.
Why do they exist?
Yes.
To what extent does the president know they exist? Now, in the way it's described in this movie, I think does kind of go against how it's been presented in other movies. Like in 3, they have an office. This does not suggest they have an office.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
In 4, Tom Wilkinson is that classic thing from the TV show, the secretary for the IMF.
Right. Which they haven't had secretary in a couple of movies.
Exactly.
now.
Then
Yeah.
Baldwin gets that role, I
Right.
guess. But like, right, that seems to have gone away.
I guess
now,
Baldwin just dies in the last one. There's no secretary in this one. Yeah.
Right. But now it's just sort of become like, no, they're like a traveling troupe of entertainers.
Yes.
And if you put a note in an apple and throw it into, the fucking ocean, then Ethan Hunt will get word.
I do think it's funny that this movie starts to make the IMF seem a little bit more like the XXX program, where it's like we get the most dangerous people in the world.
Right.
Rehabilitate them off the grid.
They added some backstory for Ethan Hunt, which feels maybe like was very much a new thing that
because
is not present all the way in the movies.
I want to rewatch the De Palma, which I've seen many times.
I
haven't
rewatched
seen
it
since
twice
we did the commentary.
in the past, 3 weeks.
It fucking owns.
Yeah.
But like that movie references his parents.
Uh-huh.
And that movie very much is like, he's an agent. He's like a good government boy. Like he's, he's shiny
That
90s Tom Cruise.
Positions him like he's one of the other guys in the interview room in Men in Black. That it's
Right.
like you're the best of the best of the best. Here he was a top
100%.
something.
What I thought was interesting is, we all talk about Ethan Hunt as a living manifestation of destiny, an agent of chaos.
Yes.
He is a singular figure. The way he's introduced in 1, it's just like lots of 2 shots of him and Emilio, or like all of the crew around a table.
Right.
It does not identify Tom
Well,
as like
they're trying to also kind of
shock you. when
shock
everyone
you
gets
with,
killed off.
everyone's going to die.
But
Right.
still, it looks like he's like a member of a team.
He's in
He's
the team.
just one peg in
totally.
a.
Yes, he's
know.
not the guy.
Yeah.
But that's always been, I think the thing that McQuarrie did that was really smart, as like the first 3 movies in particular. First 2, it's like, who is this guy? He's a cipher, right? 3 comes in the moment where Cruise is starting to like go off the tracks. And they're like, we're going to super ground him. We're going to show you that he like has a home life and a wife, and he's trying to
Guy's so
balance
normal.
shit.
He has the most normal sex. It's boring.
Right. And then the movies since then have basically framed that as like he tried and he could not do it. Right. He is just this. And in the movies since then, he has just become an insane man.
Right. Who just gathers people like he's, a Rolling Stone or whatever.
Addicted to saving the world, and his only like his vice, his greatest weakness is the idea of a single person dying, a thing he cannot handle.
Cannot abide it. Right.
One death.
But like in Ghost Protocol, right? It's like there's another team, the Josh Holloway, Paula Patton team, right? There's still the concept. Oh, Benji got promoted by like a boss,
right?
And then like, and the more we go on, the more it's like, no, the IMF are like this clown show that the CIA.
Yeah. Can I ask another question? I don't know if there is an answer to it within the lore.
Okay.
The IMF is not strictly American, correct?
Says who? I think it is.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is strictly American.
Yeah.
Is it?
It's proud to be American.
Hey, we're recording this on the 5th of July.
Right. But then
July 4th plus 1.
Yeah,
because they talk about
America's second favorite day.
Ilsa as being former British
But
intelligence.
she's not in the
She's
IMF.
never been part of the IMF officially.
Okay. Benji
Yeah.
is always working for the IMF.
Yes. He is English.
But he's English.
Yes.
And here's what happened there. They cast Simon Pegg in the role.
Yeah. And worked backwards from there.
Okay.
Yes.
I just know. I mean, it is ostensibly an American agency.
But then, okay, so the first movie,
Mm-hmm.
what's her, Emmanuel Bayard is French.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, no, the first
Kristen
movie,
Scott
they're
Thomas.
very international.
Yeah.
Kristen Scott Thomas,
Right.
you know, as we all know, Emilio Estevez is Venezuelan. I don't know. No, he's American. But no, these are all fine questions. There's never been answers to any of these questions.
to any of these.
Now, I'm not a viewer of the TV show.
Uh-huh. Neither am I.
I don't know if the TV show, which is obviously separate,
Ever
has
outlined this
more,
more.
has more on this. But they're here to handle, America's Impossible missions.
Yes.
And they do that with aplomb.
Yes.
But this movie is very much like, they're sort of like almost like contractors for the weirdest stuff.
Right. And he's the weirdest of all of them. The point I was building up to here is that like it was a franchise for a while that was unique in the fact that it like wasn't really about its lead character. It was about the movie star, and it was a vehicle for the styles of directors. And you were like, can you define who Ethan Hunt is at all? And you're like, he's a guy that Tom Cruise plays. And then I think it starts in Ghost Protocol when McQuarrie comes in as a writer, and then really gets raised to the next level when he starts directing the films of like, oh no, the key is that like Ethan Hunt is Tom Cruise. That you like take everything that is simultaneously captivating and like a little bit unnerving about this guy and his like single-minded devotion. And the movies have now become basically about Tom Cruise's like absurd pathological commitment to the idea of like keeping an idea of movies alive.
Yes.
And an idea of movie stardom and all this,
As of course was Top Gun Maverick. As it seems are just all Tom Cruise movies.
That's
these
what all
days,
is right. Yes. And I think McQuarrie had sort of like tapped into is like, oh, the TV show was always a team. The first movie, the team dies at the beginning, and that's sort of the fake out, right? And then he's like, I don't have a team. I work alone. It's just Ving Rhames in 2. In 3, he's got a team that doesn't stick. In 4, they assign him a team, and he's like, by the way, just know you are not my team. Like he keeps on saying, you're not my team.
Team guilt at that point.
Totally.
He's, right. Yeah.
It's like this guy has never gotten over letting that team die.
Right.
In the first movie, not letting them die, but not being able to save them. And so he's just like, well, I cannot get involved with a team ever again. And then the last couple of movies, this team has built around him. And now you've added this sort of like original like sin of his life, which is he like in his days of being like Aladdin.
Yeah, he was Aladdin.
He was like a pickpocket.
Dun, 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 dun,
One
dun.
step ahead.
Yeah, I don't know what he was, but he was he was in violation of the law in some way.
I have a note in my notes saying Ethan Hawke scumbum ?
Ethan Hawke?
Not Ethan Hawke, Ethan Hunt.
No, Ethan
Scumbum.
Hawke,
Yeah.
Question mark?
Greasy long hair.
That I
flashbacks.
don't buy.
Yeah, you had some pushback on the
hair
hairstyle.
didn't feel right to me.
Well, what year do we think that would be? If the first movie's 96.
I don't know, 91?
91. So by the time he's only in the IMF for 5 years. By the time we get to,
I mean, how old is he in Mission Impossible?
I guess he's like 34.
Yeah,
He's in his like grunge
Okay.
era.
How long do you want the man to be?
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd be 30 years old in 1992. So let's even say the late 80s.
Yeah.
Right.
Born on the 4th of July. He had long hair
He was
in
born
that.
on the 4th of July.
No, Tom Cruise was famously born on the 5th of July. I'm not joking.
The second most patriotic day.
Wait, today?
Isn't that right? Let me look
Are we recording this on Tom Cruise's birthday?
I take it back. The 3rd of July.
Fuck!
I knew it was
Damn it.
one day off. I just didn't remember which direction.
America's third most patriotic day.
Happy birthday, Tom.
Yeah.
Oh, right. He made like a whole thing about like how happy he was to celebrate his birthday with Mission Impossible fans around the world.
nothing he loves more.
Nothing
than to
he loves
celebrate
more.
with fans.
This whole movie, though, is about like he's like, I have finally accepted that I care about my team and they are my team.
Right.
And now it drives me insane that like all I care about is trying to keep them alive.
Sure.
Right. The sense of selflessness that is almost like pathological within him. But Christian McQuarrie does these great Empire Magazine hours-long podcast interviews whenever a new Mission Impossible movie comes out, breaking out the whole thing, right? And he talked a lot about when Fallout came out, where you have the extended sequence where it feels like they don't stop the explosion from going.
Right. And you're like, oh God, the world is being nuked.
Right.
Like they blew it.
The cold open of this movie is they fucked up. Like, how can you start a movie this way? And McQuarrie is like, I want to play with the audience thinking, are they the filmmakers fucking up?
Right.
Are they ruining this movie?
Right.
Are they breaking this franchise? And then you have the reversal. Oh, it was Wolf Blitzer. It was staged. They got the passcodes. They stopped the thing from happening. They fake the news footage. All that stuff is great. This movie starts with this submarine sequence with no characters you recognize, speaking in Russian,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It feels very Hunt for Red October, not just because of its setting, but even just its style. I think this whole movie feels very McTiernan in its style.
A little bit. Well, I mean, the man made a great submarine movie.
He did. Ding dong. Hey,
Hello.
it's me,
Who is it?
Danny Zuko.
Danny Zuko from Greece.
Sandy, I missed you.
You've come here before, right?
Yeah,
But not to the studio?
I think I called in. I think it was during the Zoom era. I think I've never been here. Nice space you got.
I was about to say thank you, Danny.
Yeah,
Thank
bigger than I imagined. It must be tough when the AC unit breaks with the lack of windows.
Yeah, and if your guest breaks the toilet, that's a huge issue.
Ow!
Well, reference to something that won't happen for months on
Maybe
this
like 3 or
podcast.
4 months from now.
What's up, Danny?
I want to wear those summer clothes.
And you're done. Summer is better with Bombas. The thoughtfully designed clothes make you feel effortlessly at ease. From breezy tagless tees to our second skin soft underwear to perfectly cushioned sweat wicking socks.
You know what, Danny Zuko? Everything is breezy.
Well, because you're such an easygoing guy.
Yeah, I'm realizing I feel like somehow I'm ending up sounding a lot like Jay-Z more than Danny Zuko, and I don't know what went wrong here.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I know what you're trying to
Zuko!
do. Socks, underwear, and t-shirts are also the number 1, 2, and 3 most requested items in homeless shelters. So anytime you buy a comfy Bombas item, Bombas donates another comfy item to someone in need. But yeah, it's like clothing designed for warm weather. Okay.
Yeah.
Like Bombas,
Yeah.
obviously, they've got the nice comforting stuff for the winter, but in the summer, they've got all these soft, breezy layers you can move in with ease, and these socks that wick sweat. I had it right the first time.
Yeah, particularly nice during those summer nights. And I'm not even going to try to hit that note again.
Summer. Every item is seamless, tagless, and effortlessly soft. Bombas
Wow.
are the clothes that you'll want to get dressed in and moved in every day.
They're electrifying.
I'm wearing how many Bombas items am I wearing? Just socks and underwear, I believe.
Same here.
Yeah, but still, I wear Bombas pretty much every day.
Sandy.
They have a 100% happiness guarantee, so you're covered for life. You can reach out anytime to their happiness team for easy returns, exchanges, or replacements. They've donated over 100 million items, and each purchase adds to that impact. And of course, anything else you want to add about Bombas, Danny?
No, just I'm disappointed they were never on Shark Tank.
No, they were on Shark
What?
Tank, the most successful product in the history of the show.
Wow.
Go to bombas.com/check and use code check for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/check and use code check at checkout. Bombas.com/check, code check.
Sandy. You have this voiceover explaining this, like, sort of this thing they have on board
They have
that
a thing
looks
on
like
board.
a bomb, but
And the-
seems hooked
yeah,
up to a
the
computer.
only way you can unlock it is with 2 keys
that look
put
cool.
together. Yeah, it's also kind of a throwback to the knock list
Yep.
in the first movie where there are 2. And
Yes.
You gotta find both.
I like it.
I do love a fun fancy key though.
But this
Yes.
is like very, this is like very straightforward, very earnest, very dramatic, right? And they're like looking at their radar screen, and there seems to be a missile coming at them.
Torpedoes coming towards us.
Right. And then it like doesn't hit, and they're like, what's going on? And I'm sitting there waiting for the moment where like it turns out what they thought was a missile was Ethan Hunt. And he rips the door off with his bare hands. Right. Or the submarine captain rips his mask off and it was him and he was faking it or whatever. And instead, no, a missile hits them. The thing blows up. They sink to the bottom of the ocean. And you're like, well, this is a deliberate choice to start out the movie with none of the characters we know, something actually going wrong. And it sets like a pallor over the film. Immediately. Yeah. In a way that I thought was like, well, this is interesting because he
a little darker.
Went out of his way to subvert the expectation that maybe he was doing that in the last movie. And now he's like, no, I am doing this.
And they also have a weird computer on board that goes like,
yes,
every time it does something bad.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Does it? Do you think it looks cool?
Yeah.
Looks like a screensaver.
It does look like
it's like a big thingy.
Yeah.
Oh, they hit themselves with their own missile.
Yeah.
Torpedo.
Right.
Yeah. The computer was an act of self-preservation, right?
This thing, the entity, was not even hinted at in any of the trailers, I feel like. I did not know going in.
There's only one hint, which is the logo of the film itself.
It does
is the entity's circular sort of interface, but that is it.
I did not know this was an AI film.
No, that started coming out after the premiere. People were like, so the villain's like AI. And I was like, well, what do you mean by that? And they were like, it's like an AI. And I was like, I thought it was like Isai Morales. And they were like, sure, but it's really an AI.
He's kind of the AI's henchman.
Yeah, he's the AI's like avatar.
Right.
Yeah, you know.
Right.
And so that was surprising. But the trailers were obviously all just like, you have to make a choice. And, you know, this is the craziest thing that's ever happened. Pick a side, all that shit. You know, it's a fucking Mad Men promo.
Right. But we go from that to another,
Shut the door.
another
Open the door.
scene of
Shut
like
the door.
Ethan Hunt living in some weird, barren, abandoned space.
Yeah.
And ordering DoorDash.
Yes.
In Amsterdam.
It's right, but it's not DoorDash. It's like Eat Run or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like food now.
Right. But in fact, it is this guy delivering his message.
Yeah,
much
and
like,
he's an agent in training or whatever.
He's like giving him the tips of how to get started. And then we have our mission, which is Ilsa Faust, our friend Rebecca Ferguson, has now acquired half of the key. You don't know why you have to get it back from her. There are a bunch of people who want her dead.
Right. You can get it back from her alive or dead. What you do with her is up to you.
Yeah.
And then we cut to this big barnstorming desert thing where Ethan's getting her and she's being chased by all the bad guys.
She's got a little eye patch at one point that's so cute.
Yeah. She does look pretty
but
badass.
no hat. I mean, come on. It's Rose.
It's Rose the Hat.
Oh, but that's only when she's in character as Rose the Hat, I guess.
I like
she
to
puts a hat
her
on
canon as Rose anywhere I see her.
So what do you want, like a Dr. Seuss hat in this one? You want like a Cat in the Hat?
Yeah, and I want her to suck some damn steam.
Yeah. There was a moment where they're like looking for Ethan, I guess. I don't know. Everyone's out to get her, right? And the camera like pans over and you see that Ethan is hiding behind like a sandbank with his horse who is lying flat.
Pretty cool.
And he's stroking like the side of the horse. And then when the other men clear,
He's a friend to animals.
in like one fluid motion, the horse just gets up with him on top of it.
Right.
And you gasp, David.
Yes. I mean, I'm very impressed by the physics of horses all the time. Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yes. Friend to
Good.
animals. Yeah.
Yeah. He's he's sort of like a thoroughbred himself, Ethan Hunt. He understands.
Yeah. But you see him. I guess you see him get to her, then it cuts out of there.
They do a fake out. It looks like she's dead or something. You're like, oh my God. Then he cut back to
The
a bunch.
Czerny briefing.
Yes, the whole Henry Czerny.
Right.
Czerny. I don't know.
Journey.
How do you say it?
I don't
Journey?
know. Zerny.
Cerny?
Journey.
Yeah.
Really good in Ready or Not. Is that what it was called?
Yeah. I think fucking unbelievable in this movie.
He is great in this. He's great.
Just the incredible, just sort of like staring at someone, growling.
Crunching
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
teeth. He's a great, what do you want to call him? Sort of, stick in the mud.
Crankpot.
Right.
But he's got so much anger in this in a way that's interesting.
Right. This movie is very skeptical of the U.S. sort of intelligence apparatus, which I would say the last few movies have all kind of nodded at. This is a little more concrete about it.
I think this movie is very skeptical of everything. I think
Everything?
I do. I think
Friendship?
I think that's one of the only things it holds dear as an absolute truth in this world.
Yes.
No, there's a lot of people saying like we were trying to make this movie like more of like a 70s political thriller, right?
Right.
But I feel like often it's kind of a performative thing, and it ends up being like, oh, like one organization is bad, but you can believe in all other organizations or whatever it is, right?
Right.
And this is a movie that is kind of like reality feels like it's sort of falling apart at the seams. This is like a destabilizing time to be alive. And everyone is just kind of confused and worried and skeptical. And I do think we're seeing a lot of things try to write about AI right now. And I think the thing this movie gets right that makes it like one of the more interesting dramatic explorations of AI for me is just the feeling of unease of like, it's not even that we should definitely be afraid of this thing. It's that we know we don't understand it.
Unpredictable.
And we don't understand the speed at which it's going. And the moment where we figure out what it is, it's going to be too late in one way or another. Like it will settle on itself before we realize what it's settled on. And I do think that just adds to this air of everything of like, we've created this thing. This thing has been created. It's existing out there. We have lost control of it. We just don't know what anything is anymore. And they view Ethan with that sort of skepticism as well, where they're like, we've trained this guy in this program. And now every single fucking movie he goes rogue. He goes rogue and he does some crazy thing that we don't understand. He pulls it off, but no one really wants to like be held accountable for what he's doing.
But I also just think it's sort of that, you know, the US government has decided it wants this AI thing, not because they know what they can do with it, but just because everyone else wants it too.
Yeah.
So we better get it first.
Yes.
Because it'll make us best.
Right. And everyone, it's sort of like it's like an Indiana Jones artifact, right?
Right. It's a thingy.
It's a thingy, but it's also the thing where they're just like, this thing is so fucking powerful.
Right. You don't understand. Yeah,
and everyone thinks like, well, everyone has the Ben attitude of like, well, if I got it, I would know how to work it and I would figure everything out.
Yeah, and everything would be the best.
Right. Whereas I think most Mission Impossible movies, they're like, this guy has a bomb and he will set off the bomb unless you give him a lot of money.
And he's a psychopath.
Let me think about
There's no
this.
reason why he's doing it, really.
In the first one, it's the knock list, which is basically like a list of all the CIA agents, right? That's the MacGuffin. That's really what they're after the whole time, right?
Sure.
The second one, it's a virus.
Right.
Deadly virus.
Chimera.
The Chimera, bad.
Yes.
The third one, it's total bullshit. It's the rabbit's foot. We never even know what it is.
Right.
Doesn't
the joke
matter.
is that it doesn't matter.
Classic, right?
Yes.
You know, the fourth one, back to more straightforward. This guy wants to set up nuclear bombs because he thinks that'd be good.
Yes.
Right.
That's
like you're
his
saying. Kind of.
stance. Right.
He's like, it would be good for that to happen
Right.
to the world.
Yes.
Fifth one, well, I guess now we're in the, fucking Sean Harris character.
Yes.
What's his name?
Solomon Lane.
Thank
Solomon
you.
Lane. And it's, what do they want? They kind of want to disrupt the world order.
Right. Wasn't the whole
Him and John Larkin
Is-
sixth.
Yeah.
Is that the one where
The rogue
it's-
agents.
Yeah, the rogue the
You know.
agents we thought were dead
Right.
are
Yes,
alive
they're
and they're
all-
forming their
That's
own counter.
a rogue nation, if you will.
Correct. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
Right. So there's like, that's what I'm saying. It's sort of creeping in this sort of like undercurrent of like whatever it is, the current world order.
Yeah.
We're skeptical. We want them to do the opposite.
But it's like radicals who come in and either want power or want to like disrupt the status quo, the natural order of things or whatever it is. And this movie, yes.
The call is coming from inside the house.
Yes, and it's also like we thought S.A. Morales was going to be the main villain, and instead you're like, he's like the muscle man for this villain that no one understands. That is this like unknown.
Yeah.
The power is the thing itself.
I was feeling very paranoid immediately from the submarine scene, which I think is the intent of the movie, so that when a mysterious person enters the CIA briefing, and the camera keeps cutting to them,
a very severe looking man with like spiky hair.
He looks awesome.
I mean,
he looks
in the
fucking
trailer,
rad.
I thought it was Shea Wiggum. With the glasses on, he kind of looks like him. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
I said to David, I was like, this feels like an X-Files thing. I literally thought that man was like the entity had figured out how to like have a human shell.
Yes.
So it ends up being Tom Cruise with a face mask.
Yeah.
And Ehrlich has not stopped making fun of me ever since we saw the movie. Oh, Marie didn't realize it was Tom Cruise. We didn't realize it was Tom Cruise. And I'm like, you know what?
He's annoying.
That guy also got like such a key shot in the trailer because his little glasses and his little face mask look cool when he sets off the bombs.
Right.
that I was with you. I was like, has the entity already taken human form?
Yeah.
Which it does not in this movie, but it's just this feeling of like, it is everywhere. And I think this is the other big thing with this movie is like, these movies have like not been super invested in continuity, right? And McQuarrie talks a lot about like, I hate fan service, I hate Easter eggs. I don't think that like really lasts. Those are like kind of cheap pops that don't linger.
You don't want to do it for no reason.
Right.
Yeah.
And then this movie is like tying back into one more, bringing up Max more, putting Kittredge in it, hitting that tonally, invoking the train chase from the end of the first one. There is this feeling that like you're watching a movie that is being written by the entity, right? Like one of the things that is interesting about this movie is like they're all operating not totally knowing if what they're trying to do is correct.
Right.
Because the entity is like fucking with the fabric of reality so much.
Sure.
What does that mean?
Well,
Like, how does it do that? Is it influencing people in the sense of through social media, right? And getting people in real time to change their opinion or their minds about a person or a thing? How are they changing reality in the physical world?
well, there's like shit like what the first main mission they have is this thing where it's like we need to give a fake key to the guy who's bought the other half the key so we can scan it and figure out. It's this thing where the guy's gonna get in a plane and they go to the airport in Dubai.
They want to follow the guy with one half of the key
Yes.
to wherever he's going
Because
because
they still don't know what the key
They think they're doing a
opens.
relatively simple mission.
Right.
But it's a classic Mission Impossible. I have glasses that will scan the key and they'll
Yeah,
find it in
right.
his pocket and they'll create a dummy and then we'll place the key on him and do this and do that.
Yeah.
A very classic kind of clever, like,
Yeah.
here are the steps. I'm going to wear a nice suit.
They're not.
What?
I'm trying to remember if they're making a dummy or not. Because like their whole thing is like, we can't actually do that. We need to follow the key.
Right.
Right.
So they actually have, like, they're pretending they're going to do that maybe. But yes, he has glasses and there's this very cool effect. Look, that whole sequence is great.
Yes.
The airport sequence in Dubai or
Mhm.
Abu Dhabi or wherever it is. Great Mission Impossible stuff. You've got Tom doing this one thing.
Yeah.
People are chasing Tom. That's element 2.
Yes.
And then you've got, Luther and Benji on the computers. And then Benji has to go off to do mission 3, which is there's a bomb in a bag. I got to defuse the bomb. And then of course,
Bombs
there's Haley
escaping
Atwell
barrels.
showing up.
Yes. As a pickpocket.
Who's this new person?
Yeah.
She's an unstable element. She's also after the key, but maybe for different reasons. All this stuff is happening. And then I think you're trying to, like, it turns out there's no bomb.
Yes.
There's no key. There's no buyer. It's all vapor.
Right.
It's all in the cloud or
Because
whatever.
at the beginning, they're doing the shit, right? Like, there's this bit where Shea Wiggum and Tarzan Davis are trying to find Ethan Hunt and cut him off at the pass, and they're using, like, the security monitors to track where he is and which quarter of the airport, and they think they found him. And when they go up to the guy, it's a guy with an entirely different face. And it's like, oh, Benji and Luther have done some clever thing where they've hacked the security system and they've like fucking deep faked his face onto the wrong people and a wrong face onto him so they can't find him. And then like the entity starts doing shit like that.
Well,
like it erases S.A. Morales in real time. Esai Morales in real time from the security footage where they can't find him. It is like setting targets that are false.
It's funny that the entity's kind of like a troll.
Yes.
He's just like wreaking havoc for the lulz.
It's like identifying this
some
bomb,
ways.
right, that they go and find, that Benji finds, that's asking him riddles that are weirdly personal that he
Yes.
has to solve.
It makes him say the thing he cares most about are his friends.
My friends.
Right, which
Because
these movies have started to weaponize friend as an idea in the same way that Fast and Furious weaponizes family.
But it's just right. If this algorithm doesn't care about any of that, obviously. 'Cause
Right.
It's a soulless algorithm.
Mocking him.
But also identifying that as the weakness.
Yeah.
And that's what the subsequent action is about, right? He's like, I know this is the thing that will throw you off balance, right? Going after your friends.
Because the bomb opens up and there's nothing inside.
There's nothing inside.
And it's like, oh, the trick was, haha, I got you to admit that you care about people.
But also it was capturing his voice.
Correct.
And all that.
And all
Which
of
it then
his
uses
personal
later
data.
to like, right. Tom Cruise is following the model of how a Mission Impossible movie works. Benji's in his ear and he tells him where to go.
Now, Marie,
And suddenly the entity is writing fake dialogue and sending him in the wrong directions.
Marie, I thought I was sitting next
Later
to you when we saw this film.
Mhm.
I feel like you thought Simon Pegg was maybe going to bite it in this scene, right? There is that sort of element where you're kind of like, we're so many movies in.
Someone's going to die in this one.
Is that going to happen? Is there going to be some kind of early tone setting, surprising death to just sort of keep,
the
things
stakes high?
Exactly.
I thought as soon as he said that he loved his friends, then I was like, oh, well, he's dead.
That's when I pulled back. That's when I was like, it's too obvious, I think. I think Benji will be okay. And also, Benji is too soft a target.
Yeah.
That's my main thing. Like, that was Joss Whedon's trick, always was going, the softest target. But I think it's too easy to kill the cuddliest, least threatening, right? Yeah. So, like, and then very shortly after, Tom Cruise hugged Rebecca Ferguson on a balcony. And I don't know how you guys felt, and we are spoiling the movie, but I was like, she's dead. Dead.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just because that moment is sort of lingered on, but I was also just like, he cannot fuck in these movies. Right. I'm sorry to be crass.
Yeah. No, he can't.
And their relationship is coming to a point where it's like, what is this?
Yes.
If not romantic?
Yes.
Right? Like, they have a connection that's a little bit beyond everyone else's connection, right?
Yeah, and Fallout kind of ended with that moment of it feeling like Michelle Monaghan being like,
okay,
he's yours now.
Yeah. Right. And there is just this feeling like, well, Ethan's not actually allowed to, like, be in love again.
No one else is the same way. Like, they're both not actually capable of being in a normal person relationship.
I don't think it's like I don't think it's an emotional thing. I think it's like a Doctor Strangelove, like they need to protect their precious bodily fluids sort of thing.
It might be part of it.
It's too much for Ethan to exert himself.
Right.
But like,
he's on a no-fap existence.
But like, I'm not someone who thinks very hard about like the casting or promotion or like where I'm trying to figure out like what will the plot points be. But the second I saw that, I was like, oh, I think Fergie might be done for.
Well, and also adding,
and then I start to think like, oh, right, they've added in Haley Atwell.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm starting to think about sort of the balance of this all together. Yes. And then I'm starting to think like, well, also maybe is Rebecca Ferguson maybe the one actor who in the press tours is kind of like, this is a very stressful thing to make. It's kind of a lot.
It's funny. They always talk about like, because she's like the first person to enter into these movies and kind of be Tom Cruise's equal. And then they talk about, and she talks about like, she is so different than Tom Cruise and how she approaches
We don't have
acting.
similar styles. Right.
No, and it's like they can both hit the same effect, but she's like a very thoughtful, internal, sensitive. She does not have like endless stamina. She does not love doing stunt training.
She was pregnant making Fallout, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe she was kind of like, I don't know. I'm sure McQuarrie will talk about it. It doesn't sound like
she dislikes these, but she's like, I find acting hard. It's not like a thing I get like a lot of adrenaline from.
That's all.
I love her.
I love her too.
And the more stressed out she talks about being, the more I love her.
God bless. She's making Dune in between these as well. It's like, not like those are cakewalks.
She has a Silo in an Apple series called Silo.
Don't
go in a silo.
No, leave. You can't leave.
You can't leave.
That's all I know about silos. You can't leave the silo.
You can't leave the silo.
Is it like a grain silo?
No, they like live in a silo. I don't know.
And you're like, what is this? And you look and it stars like 5 Pulitzer Prize winners.
I'm looking at shit.
That's where they've all been.
Silo.
Jimmy Carter's in the main cast of Silo. I know he won the Nobel Prize.
In a ruined and toxic future, a community exists in a giant underground silo that plunges hundreds of stories deep. There, people live in a society full of regulations they believe are meant to protect them.
Doesn't it have crazy people in the supporting cast?
It's got a pretty
Tim
stacked
Robbins,
cast.
Harriet Walter, David Oyelowo, Common.
But Haley Atwell's
Will
introduction.
Patton.
Love him.
He's seeing that there is a pickpocket who pulled the key from the target that he's scanning with his glasses. And rather than like view her as a rival, he's like, game recognized game.
Right.
Let me go to her. Let me draw her in.
I wrote this down. Yeah. I was really happy to see Ethan Hawke do not Ethan Hawke. Jesus fucking Christ. Ethan Hunt.
Yes.
Do street magic again.
He's back to fucking David Blaine shit. He's doing like close up, sleight of hand.
Yes, he does.
And this is
that whole sequence is so good.
But he's still in this thing where he's like, I'm Ethan Hunt. I can make anything work. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
The movie starts to break him down as it goes on a little bit.
But I was rewatching, all the Mission Impossibles in preparation of
Missions Impossible.
Missions Impossible. And I think he does street magic in 2.
Does he?
He's got the big bit in 1.
Is it in 1? I thought he did it in 2
He
as well.
definitely does it in 1.
One
Okay.
does it with the the floppy disk or
Right.
whatever.
Oh,
He's
you're right.
like-
That's what
Two
I'm
is
thinking of.
I remember the least about 2.
Yes.
I've seen it multiple times. It's just the one that doesn't stick in my head as much.
Other than Sandgun.
Sandgun, of
Sandgun.
course. We respect.
Oh, I
Sandgun.
like all the sexy stuff, like when they're in the bathtub.
I like that, but I want it to be better and more of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the idea of him being horny,
Yeah.
but it feels like the movie's sort of like, should we float this? And then quickly with Ethan Hunt, they're like, no, don't worry
I
about
think
that.
2 is like interesting as the midlife crisis movie where it's
Right.
like this guy's whole team died in front of him. How is he doing? Great. I'm doing great. What are you talking about? I grew my hair out. I got sunglasses. I fuck a bunch of women. I'm doing great. I've never been happier. I actually
That's
like
such-
being free.
Griffin, that's such a good reading of it.
Right. And he's like, look how cool I am. I run in slow motion. I'm fine. I'm doing unbelievable. I'm still friends with Ving Rhames. We still talk. I flew back to
Rhames is-
Australia. I see him. I talk to him all the time.
I
I'm doing
guess Ving
great.
Rhames is the only person who can be on his. Everyone else is dead.
Yes.
It's just that he doesn't retain anyone from 2. There's no
Right.
friends getting carried over from 2.
I'll say this. I thought Ving was going to be the one to die in this movie.
That just seems too mean. That's like killing Hagrid.
That's why I
It's
thought
like,
they were
who
going to
doesn't
do it
love
because I
him?
was like, this is the move that would be so staggering. This is the one guy who's been continuity throughout
They
all
sort of-
these movies.
well, maybe-
There's a moment in Fallout where he's in danger,
Yes.
Yeah.
and you sort of wonder.
They do
but
a
then he
fake out.
saves him up.
Right.
Well, maybe instead of killing Ethan in the final movie, it's they kill Luther.
That's just sad.
Yeah, no, I want Luther because Luther could live a normal life. Luther could retire, right? But I think Ving is so fucking locked in this movie.
He is. He's really good.
Where it feels like he has to be in a thing he started to do increasingly over the sequels, be the emotional translator for Ethan, where
Yeah.
Ethan will come in and say the super intense
He
shit,
gets him the best.
and he'll
That's
leave the
true.
room, and then he'll be like, "You need to understand."
Benji is still a little bit like, well, I don't know,
Right.
and Ilsa obviously doesn't. She's not
Right.
really an emotional person.
Luther's like, "I've been with him for so long." That's Ethan's way of saying X.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Right.
also most crucial in this because this movie is sort of introducing the idea that IMF agents are all people who were once on the run
Yes.
and in their most desperate moment
Right.
were identified by our government,
Which, by the way,
and
was
recruited.
how we were introduced to Luther.
That's
he was
what I'm saying.
Yes.
He makes the most sense. Is like where we were like, well, we've actually seen that play out,
Right.
with him.
yes.
Now with Benji, it more feels like Benji, took a few tests,
Right.
and
Also,
got
was he
recruited.
like a hacker?
That no. Immediately
Right.
while I'm watching
Yes.
this movie, I start doing that
right.
internal revision of like, makes sense to me. He hacked into something he shouldn't have hacked into.
But it doesn't feel like all of them are necessarily like insane, like high risk criminals, but that all of them were just like on the wrong side of the law. And they go like, we can either arrest you or you can use your skills for us.
Right. And then I start thinking about like, okay, so in the office,
Mhm.
the janitors, is it like someone who was such a good janitor,
Yeah.
then he got in over his head? And then he was like janitoring for the wrong guys. And
Yeah.
then the government was like, we got a great janitor position for you.
I was thinking about that with Luther's hats. Like, what was their backstory?
Well,
Were they bad hats?
Well, if you notice, the hats are never straight. They're always at an angle. It doesn't matter
that's
what
true.
hat
So they're
he's
kind of
wearing.
rebellious.
Yeah.
Did you guys see my pitch on Twitter for young Luther?
I don't look at Twitter anymore.
Okay, sorry, I should have put it on Blue Sky.
Wait, it's
That's
really
right.
good right now.
Yeah, it's really finally entered its final form.
Yeah, I think it's kind of they cleaned it
Twitter
up.
is now just like this like mutant goblin that's like, let me die. Like, it's just like throwing up.
Every account is like a fucking Ripley clone from Resurrection.
What was your pitch for a young Luther?
Well,
I think I
no,
did see this.
I just think that, if you want to expand the franchise, because clearly we have to end with Tom.
Yeah,
Like, he physically is not going to be able to. But if we want to, mine more IP, I want to see an 80s urban techno thriller starring young Luther.
Look, I'm all for that, although I'm skeptical of young things.
Yeah.
Because you got to recast.
no, but David, what if you
Some
de-age
still
it? That
works.
works really well every time.
Imagine if they de-aged Ving Rhames. But he still moved like 2020's
Right.
Ving Rhames. No offense to 2020's
I'm in the
Ving
prime
Rhames.
of his life. I'm in the prime of my life, but I kind of feel like sitting down right now. It's a lot of scenes where he just chooses to sit down.
Right.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
I'm all for it.
Is-
I'm all for 80s freaker vibes,
Yeah.
PH freaker. Yeah. Sounds
no, but
good.
just the fact that Ving Rhames does not move as well anymore, and he basically just always has to be in a chair behind a computer in every scene.
Well, not just that, but we talk like there's the scene in this movie where the final act is revving up where Luther's like, Ethan, I gotta go. I'm gonna look into some of this stuff. I won't be in the rest of the film.
Yes.
but there's a reason for it. Goodbye. It might as well just be Ving being like, you're going to be running around and stuff.
Yes.
I just, I'm pretty sleepy.
But like his weariness, they have owned, and I think have made it this thing where he's like, because you have all these scenes.
But he's running around in Fallout, and you're like, can someone just check on Luther? Is he all right?
Yes.
And this one, they're very consciously like, Luther's gonna go.
Yeah,
over
I love the part where he's just like so exasperated by the fact that like he says something crazy like, I have to hack into it like offline, and I'm like thinking like, what does that mean? Is he going to like take a like a circuit breaker?
Yeah, he's like doing this
paper clip into the side of a laptop.
He actually knows Clippy.
Yeah,
so he's gonna actually get to know him.
Yeah, I went to school with Clippy.
I gotta talk to a friend of mine. Clippy bounces
Ethan.
out from behind an alley.
My friend is Clippy. David.
Yes, Griffin.
Mon podcast, s'il vous plaît. David.
You just asked me in French if my podcast or your podcast pleased me.
Mais oui.
AKA, do you like my podcast?
Oui.
Very well spoken, Griffin. You must have been using Babbel.
Oui.
Oh, well, 1 in 5 Americans have learned a new language on their bucket list.
Sacre bleu.
If you want to check that off this summer, use Babbel. You're going to start speaking a new language in just 3 weeks. It works.
Mon Dieu.
Instead of paying hundreds of dollars for a private tutor or fooling yourself with language apps that are a little more than games, Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are designed by over 150 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks.
C'est bien, no?
These things that are designed for conversation, okay? All the tips and tools for learning a new language are rooted in real-life situations. You got a lot of conversation-based teaching.
Très bien.
And they have speech recognition technology that helps you improve your pronunciation and accent. Not that you need any help with that.
Je voudrais le sandwich du poulet.
You want the sandwich of chicken.
What?
Over 10 million subscriptions sold. Babbel is real language learning for real conversations. And studies from places like Yale and Michigan State University and others continue to prove that Babbel is better. It's apparently using it for 15 hours, equivalent to a full semester at college.
Ça va bien?
Doesn't say which college.
D'accord.
Here's a special limited time deal for our listeners to get you started right now. Get 55% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/check. Get 55% off at babbel.com/check. That's spelled BABBEL.com/check. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Au revoir.
Okay, so can we talk about, let's talk about Gabriel.
Yes.
Okay,
right.
so
So this is what I was gonna say. So he's doing the close-up sleight of hand with Hallie Atwell, trying to like charm her into like, and you can help us, and we'll pay you twice as much and whatever. I know you're a good pickpocket, but are you a good pocket? And he's fucking master of the universe, like king shitting her, and then he just sees out of the corner of his eye this guy's fucking face.
yes. And have we already seen the flashback? I think we have, haven't we?
I think
They do those very early.
They do it early on.
These little de-age flashbacks, very brief, very sepia toned.
de-age. It's just sort of like
Makeup
silhouette.
or whatever.
You're not seeing him
you
clearly.
see young Esai Morales.
Yeah, but I thought that effect looked good.
Yes.
I think that was.
But Cruz is notably not de-age, which
Yeah,
I think is
right.
the incredible decision to be like, cast him in shadow.
And you see that he was.
We need to discuss this.
We'll talk about it.
Not about the hair, about the woman.
Oh, sure. Well, who's the woman?
Marie.
Bardi.
Bardi is the character's
The name of the character is Marie.
The character's name is Marie.
Yes.
Ethan lost a woman named Marie. We don't know anything else about
Right.
it, right?
But that is what, caused him to enter the IMF.
Right. And at the hands of Gabriel, who is
Yeah.
a bad person.
Yes.
Right.
That's
But
really all we know.
I was
Yes.
just really excited.
Yeah.
To
I know
hear-
who plays.
Oh, yeah.
It's Mariela Garriga
Uh-huh.
plays Marie. Looks like she's done some television.
But another of the Ethan Hunt brunettes, right?
Mhm.
Sure.
Which is another part of like
yes, this is in this movie. They're kind of like, you can only orbit him for a couple years before, someone's
Right.
going to displace you or whatever.
right.
Yeah.
But also is the entity kind of writing this movie? I'm not saying in a meta way, right? But like, is the entity orchestrating events specifically to get to Ethan Hunt? Because the root of this movie is so many people want the entity because they think if they use it, they can be
in
king
charge
shit.
of everything.
Right. They'll know how to handle it.
Yeah.
The entity, what its end game is unclear at this point.
But it's self-aware, and the idea that anyone can control it is kind of ludicrous, except I guess if you have this magic key, then maybe you can. Right.
Or you could at the very least shut it down, which is its greatest fear, right? And it basically believes anyone who comes into my orbit will be so intoxicated by the idea of the power I control that I can take over them.
Except for one person.
There's one person in the universe I have
so
analyzed.
Ludicrous.
Yes.
Yes.
Who is the one person who is selflessly committed to this idea of keeping humanity on the straight and narrow.
But I think it's beyond that. It is, yes, it's identified Ethan's good character.
Yeah.
But it's also identified like reality warps around this man in
Yes.
ways that are beyond algorithmic understanding.
Yeah.
Right? He will make the impossible possible.
Right.
He has to memorize the nuclear codes. He just does it.
But there's a point where Luther says to him, like, what's your end game, Ethan? He says something like making sure that no one ever dies. And Luther's like, that's impossible, Ethan, right?
Right, exactly.
And later he tries to make this promise to Haley Atwell where he's just like, I will make sure you never die. And they're like, Ethan, you can't promise that. And he adjusts it to something like, I promise you I will always prioritize your life above my own. And it's this sense of, in this like the weird figure that Tom Cruise has turned into, where it's like, this guy is just so committed to this idea of movies have to stay intact. You need to do things for real in front of a camera, the old fashioned way. I don't care about anything else, right? Where the entity is like, this guy actually doesn't do anything for himself. So there's no way to appeal to him on that level. So what I need to do is hit all of his like pressure points.
His buds.
Right. You need to put a new brunette in front of him.
That's part of it.
You need to put an old brunette at risk. I've noticed the pattern, and I'm now like playing the story beats of what the story cycles of this man are.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like you say, right, Ethan can't deny people have died.
Yeah.
With Ethan.
And he hates it.
He doesn't like it, but it has happened. But
Yeah.
he can, yes, promise he'll put you above himself.
Yeah.
And there's that moment late in the film when he asks Grace how she is. And her face, reacts to it, and it's beautiful.
We both
were
looked
like,
at each other.
Good,
Fuck.
good.
Yeah. I love Haley Atwell.
Yeah, I'm very pro. We've always been
very
pro Haley Atwell podcast,
and it just feels like she's one of those people where it's like no one is quite figuring out how to use her to the best of her ability on a regular basis.
Stuck mostly in Marvelville,
but her character being in the past, getting killed off so early, she's off in these little tiny pop-ins and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I should watch that Howard's End miniseries that Kenneth Lonergan did.
Weird that I haven't seen that.
I bet she was good in that.
She's probably great in it, but fun character in this, and you do start to realize halfway through the movie, like, oh, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing how someone becomes an IMF agent.
Yes,
right. And the thing she plays so well is what you're talking about, where it's like she goes from this cocksure, like I'm the fun color character.
I'm always in it for myself.
Right.
Like, yeah, I'm always going to nick what's in your pocket and run away.
What Helena Shaw is trying to be.
Helena Shaw.
In
Sorry.
Dial of Destiny.
Oh, sure.
I'm just like, I think those characters in conception.
Well, Helena Shaw, the Fleabag.
Yes.
Granddaughter Fleabag. Have you seen
Goddaughter
Indiana
Fleabag.
Jones, Goddaughter Fleabag?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's definitely like, she keeps saying like, fortune and glory. I'm only in it for myself. And I'm like, I don't buy it.
No, she doesn't really do it though. And I'm like,
but she says it. She
of
keeps
course.
saying it
Whereas,
in this
like,
way where you're like, okay.
Haley Atwell is actually, it's like classic show don't tell stuff where like her actions, you're like, oh, I can't keep this woman straight. And then the thing that's so great is once she starts getting like roped into this world and put on the crazy missions, you see what you're talking about, the moments where it's just like, oh, this is like an entire like reality shifter. I'm existing in a different plane of existence now, and this is like a terrifying world, and there's no turning back, which is what they say to her like immediately.
But also,
what are your choices? And they're like, either we turn you in or you do this for the rest of your life.
Right.
And you have no friends, you have no family.
Right.
You're like
You don't exist
you're dirty
anymore.
circus folk for the rest of your life on these like globetrotting missions.
Yeah.
But we
Right?
do have each other.
Yes.
And that's fun.
Right.
And
yeah.
And also, as Luther sort of says, he's like, what is your current life?
Right.
Your current life is basically this anyway. You're always on the run.
This is the stuff that Ving is like killing so
He's
hard
really
in the
good at
movie.
it. And
But
it is true. You're right. They actually give him, he's good doing nothing, but
Yeah.
they do give him something.
They give him a lot of emotional weight, and he's saying like, I know, I was you. We all were you previously. You're we get what you're existing in reaction to, but this is not sustainable.
Do you think Tom Cruise has friends?
I mean, this is the whole thing.
Yeah.
No.
He has his group of people that he trusts that he works with.
I think it's people
who
like
travels around the
right, who
the
he
world
collaborates with, and they
his
have
team.
like conversations.
I think his closest friends are literally the people he works on Mission Impossible with, and the relationship is exactly the same as it is with the characters.
I think that's true. There was that story going around about how he didn't want to leave Simon Pegg, like during. Oh wait, I'm gonna look it up.
I think Simon Pegg is like his 5th best friend in the world, and I think they know each other as well as these two characters know each other, which is like, he is my friend. Yes,
right. Yeah.
If he gives people the cake though every year,
gives
he does
everyone the cake.
Give people the cake.
Yeah,
and I would love that cake, obviously.
How do we get on that damn list?
Well, we can just order it. It's on Goldbelly.
No, but I want it from fucking Tom.
If anyone is close to Tom Cruise who listens to this podcast, let us know.
Yeah.
Put us on the list.
This was look, a lot of it's just like the recency of having dug into this so deeply, and there's obviously the huge kind of homage at the end. But watching this, I just kept on thinking, like, Ethan Hunt as a character is so much the way Buster Keaton was described as a person, not the Buster Keaton screen persona. But when you read about him as much as we were and like dig into him, where everyone's like, I don't quite understand what drives this guy.
Right.
Outside of the fact that he was seemingly just built to do this thing. And there are like some demons that haunt him, but he's not like this sort of like self-obsessed artiste, and he's not a tortured artist, and he's not whatever. He's just sort of like, well, I just have to do this. I have to do this, and you have to just like go bigger and harder. And they're like, that's dangerous. And he's like, well, we'll figure it out.
Well, Buster did find peace in his personal life at the end.
Took a long time.
It took a long time.
Yeah, he had to basically lose everything.
Right. Everyone was sort of like, he's kind of unknowable.
I don't know if that is possible for Tom Cruise.
Well, I cannot speculate on Tom Cruise's personal life.
No.
I can.
I'm sorry. Go right ahead. No, he's a strange man, and the more you delve there, probably the less fun you're gonna have.
Yeah.
That's sort of the rule we all have to have with Tom Cruise these days, right? I don't even mean in terms of nefarious shit.
No.
I more just mean like just kind of a bummer.
Just kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
But like we were talking about this in the Steamboat Bill episode, that's the movie where some people have the read that like he was suicidal, his marriage was collapsing, his drinking was at its worst, his independent film run was ending. Is that movie the one where he has the death wish and the stunts are so crazy because he was like, I don't fucking care if I die doing this? And I was pushing back on that. I'm like, I think that's a fundamentally wrong read. I think if he was that depressed, he would not care about putting that much work into the movie. I think it's more that he's just like, this is the one thing that keeps me alive. And I'm so committed to the idea of trying to get it right that the risk of dying is a necessary risk, which is what drives Ethan Hunt.
Yes. Now,
right? He's like, I don't want to die. But also, if that's the only way to do this, then I'm going to not worry about it.
And I certainly will, put myself in the most danger.
Yes.
Even though Ethan is getting older.
He is.
And Cruise reads old in this movie, not like ancient.
But this movie
But there's lines on his face. He's got kind of his, he's older.
And especially when Top Gun was his last film. It's his biggest film ever.
It's also shot 4 years ago.
Top Gun was in the can for a while because of COVID.
Yeah.
And then this movie was shot over several years because of COVID, stops and starts.
Sure.
Where you're just like, he's looking a lot older than the last time we saw him on screen. And he ages like over the course of the movie as well. Yeah.
I mean, he looks
in a way I
older.
find interesting.
I do too. I mean, Peg looks pretty haggard in this movie.
Yeah.
He's been very upfront about the stuff he's dealing with. Again, it kind of works.
What is he? What do you
He's
mean?
serious alcoholism.
Oh.
Which he's, I think, dealing with. He's talking about it.
That's good.
But
what was the story you were trying to pull up?
I couldn't find it. It was something of basically like he would not abandon Peg at some press thing. I can't remember what it was though. Sure. And like if you just Google Simon Pegg, Tom Cruise, you get, it's too hard to find it.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of works too. Like Benji being like a little fresh-faced boy in 3.
Yeah.
And kind of feeling like a grizzled old vet at this point.
Someone tweeted this the other day, but
He also looks immaculate. She hasn't changed at all.
Yes.
I mean, Ferguson's just freaking gorgeous.
The most beautiful woman in the world. Murray, do you know who the original choice was for the Benji role in Mission Impossible 3? Who it was explicitly written for?
You already referenced this.
In today's episode?
You referenced it.
Oh, Ricky Gervais.
What?
Well, he was hot stuff.
Of course.
The Office.
That was when people were like, if we could be the first one to harness that in a movie. And that was like the excitement. Could you imagine?
We
I
still had to
can't,
deal with him.
imagine him running.
No.
Well, I mean, look, in the third movie, obviously he's
All
just
he has
behind
to
the
do
desk.
is be like funny behind
they
a computer.
They might not have reused him.
Probably
like
not.
Peg pops better in that movie.
Yes.
And Peg's career also is heading in the right direction because after MI3, you get Shaun of the Dead and all
Right.
that stuff. That they're by
Well, Shaun of the Dead's before.
Right, but I guess you got Hot Fuzz. Right, Hot Fuzz is after. That's 2007.
Yes.
But yeah,
Yes.
he's already
Right.
demonstrated he can do action comedy,
Right.
like
Yeah.
some
But,
sort of physical
I think
element.
the other part of it too is like Gervais might have been very funny in that moment, at that point in that role. David squinting, he might have
been
comedically.
fine.
Peg
Right.
has always just had a little more soul to him,
Yeah, Ricky Gervais is not a good actor.
No, he's
Simon
not.
Pegg's a pretty good actor.
and Peg like plays well in that third movie. The feeling of like this is genuinely stressful for this guy
Right.
in a way that makes you feel for him rather than just be a butt of a joke. That you could see Cruise being like, we could give this guy more to do, and he would hold it.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think if you're Tom Cruise and a year after MI3, you watch Hot Fuzz.
Yes.
Because Shaun of the Dead, Peg's good.
Yeah.
But in Hot Fuzz, he's diving and shooting guns and he's playing an action hero.
Edgar Wright was one of the finalists to direct Ghost Protocol along with Brad Bird. He's clearly a huge Edgar Wright fan.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it makes total sense.
I think he's right. You're like, yeah, we got to bring Peg back.
But yes, I do think it works for these movies that you're like, Benji's like changed a lot. And not in a way that feels like the franchise is like making him into a different character than he was originally, but you're just like, you feel the passage of time on these people. You feel the weight of the amount of missions. I do feel like even if Rebecca Ferguson looks unchanged, you do feel her getting like colder and harder and across the three movies, right?
Right.
Like in the first movie, she's playing more like mysterious femme fatale. And by this one, you're just sort of like, she is like kind of a brutal weapon.
So they have the whole thing happen. Then they all unite.
They do have the whole thing happen.
The whole airport
Before we
thing.
move on from the airport, I just
Let's
want to
move on.
single out one shot that I
Yes,
thought was
please.
great, where you see Tom running on the roof
Mhm.
of the airport in the background.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Really
that was
funny.
a very funny shot.
Incredibly.
That whole sequence is just a delight.
Yeah.
in
It's
my
great.
opinion.
And it's just great. Like, it's not like
And it's-
action sequence per se, but it's great.
But
like,
it's great Mission Impossible
tension
business.
racketing.
Definitely.
You've who's zooming who, 6 different people looking at
Throwing
different.
all these balls in the
Yes.
air, and then we're gonna have to catch a bunch of them later.
But it's like, right, everything's going wrong. She ends up on a plane with the key without him.
Right.
He eludes Shea Wiggum, but still they need to track Haley Atwell, who's a whole new figure added into the solution. And also now they're just like this entity thing, which they're kind of keeping secret from Ethan. When the bomb shit's going on, they're not looping him in on it until the
Right.
final riddle.
Right.
And you have that scene where he's like, why were you not fucking telling me this?
he doesn't say fucking. If he tried to say fuck, his brain would explode.
Okay, so we go from there to Rome.
Yeah, that's where Ilsa shows up, right?
Yes. Because you flash back at some point to reveal that he put her on the horse
Is
and
she
sent
in
her
Rome
off.
or is
Yes.
she in Venice? Because when they go to Rome is
she
where
is in Venice.
She's in Venice.
Yes, Rome
Yeah.
is where
Yes.
the car chase sequence,
Yes.
which is so good.
Oh,
So the car chase sequence, I think, again, you know, this franchise has had a lot of car chases.
Yeah.
And the Fallout motorcycle chase in Paris is so good,
Mhm.
where it's like he's weaving through everything like magic.
Mhm.
And to do the opposite of it, where they keep fucking up,
yes.
the car is weird,
Yes.
they handcuff each other in the the direction, so
Oh.
she has to
They're
drive.
flipped over.
All
Yeah.
this, like all this stuff is so clever that they're in the tiny car and Palm
It
Clementieff
did
is in
feel
the
Keaton-y
giant
to
car.
me.
It absolutely did. And they're
Yes.
driving in the loop in the third card.
Yes, the
The
little,
Mhm.
Castle
little,
Cagliostro car.
Fiat
Right.
Cinquecento.
Luigi from the Pixar universe.
Yes.
Yes. But yes, no, it feels the construction of these things, and like these are the only movies that are still made the way that Keaton used to make movies, where it's like, what would be fun to do in a movie? And what's the logic of that? And like building things one step at a time and then building story around that. This sequence is just like good beat after good beat. And it's not just cool shit happening.
And I just have so many questions about the logistics of how they shot it, because it looks like everything is being done for real, and it looks like the camera is attached to the car.
Yes.
So like,
Cool.
that's insane.
Yes. And Pom Klementieff is playing a character named Paris.
Okay, yeah, we have not talked about Pom
who
yet.
dresses like a Cirque du Soleil member.
She's like a mime matador.
Yes. Right. And she loves destruction.
Yes, she loves destruction, but also doing a pouty face.
She's so hot.
She's so hot. She's like fucking incredible in this.
When she's driving that like tank,
yes,
the manic glee on her face when she's like driving over smaller cars and like
she's
destroying
she's almost
things.
exactly my age. She's a week younger than me.
Oh wow.
Jesus.
I was born, and then a week later, a cooler person was born.
A much cooler person. One of the coolest people alive.
She's probably a pretty cool baby too. Like when she was born,
Yeah.
the doctor was like,
Sunglasses.
"This is a fucking cool baby."
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah, she's awesome. She's in league with the entity, I guess, as well, but maybe not as like Isai Morales' character seems to be sort of like devoted to the entity, and later we see him sleeping in a computer coffin that's like, you know, beaming AI into his head.
Right.
Whereas she's
basically
more
just like listening to like 10 episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience in a row.
Like layered on top of each other.
Yeah.
But-
yes, no, she's like a henchman's henchman, basically.
Yeah, she's
just
really good
for hire. Yeah,
but she seems more for hire.
But you do get the
but
sense
important enough that she gets to like be in the meeting.
Yeah.
With Carrie Elwes later.
Yeah, but I also think this choice of like she fucking loves this.
Right.
She
She
does
loves
this for the fun of it.
high octane.
Yes.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And she doesn't really talk.
No.
She talks a little later, but largely she's sort of silent assassin
French.
vibes. And she is
Her name
kind
is
of like
Paris, which
dark.
is very subtle.
Yes, very subtle. Dark mirror image of the Grace character, I guess, a little bit, right? You know,
Sure.
because there are two characters here who are potentially like recruitable in a way. And I do think Paris will end up being a good guy in the next
Knock on
movie.
wood. I hope
Right?
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she makes the movie that keeps talking about how it's about choices.
Right.
She
And she makes a choice.
Right.
Which
But also the entity tells her to make that choice.
well, yeah, the entity chicken
tell her,
or
predicts
egg.
it.
predicts it.
The entity wants her dead because it thinks she will be won over by the fact that Ethan didn't kill her, which
Right.
it's correct about.
Right.
But they show us her hand moving at the end, right? She's still alive.
Yeah.
No, she's definitely
Pom
still
will be
alive.
back.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, the entity predicting that.
Yeah, maybe it's
is it
all
like
gonna
forcing
be,
her hand?
well, this is how the entity messes with you, Griffin.
I think she genuinely wants to jump over, but is that what the entity also wants to have happen for some
I'm
reason?
saying that's how they get in your head.
That's what I like.
Okay, so Rome is the car chase. That was really cool.
This is the same fucking the staircase.
Oh, isn't it James Bond?
F and Fast
the
X.
Spanish Steps.
Okay.
It's the
Yes.
Spanish Steps, guys.
I haven't been to Italy.
Okay, well, it's really nice there. And the other Keats house is there. That's where Keats died, as I talk about very movingly on our Bright Star episode.
Mhm.
And this film is obviously calling back to our Bright Star
Absolutely.
episode.
Not even calling back to Bright Star, calling back to our episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, because Bright Star doesn't go there, but
No.
our episode did.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the Spanish Steps. And yes, Fast X did have a whole run because that's where the big bomb ball is rolling
In my
around.
opinion, a dog shit sequence. And then you're watching this like beautifully constructed.
I think this is much better.
I think it's so much better that I was just like, God, this is like what I want.
But not enough Scott Eastwood. I could have done with him.
I want him cutting in
Hey guys, what's up?
on a walkie-talkie.
I'm here too.
I'm still alive.
And then Jason Momoa going like, lol.
Yeah.
Like, I can have cheeseburger? And people are like, brilliant. Good performance. Smart.
That feels like a performance constructed by the entity.
It's just
I think that's mean to the entity. I feel like the entity is
People
like more
like
perceptive.
that performance.
That's
It's
crazy.
so
Not
mind-boggling to
get
me,
it.
but I want to acknowledge that some people really like it.
I think choices are being made. And I think in an era in which very often
In a
things feel
choiceless era.
kind of
right. Yeah,
very
yeah.
safe, there's like an appreciation for the fact that he's taking swings. And I'm like, shouldn't there be any cohesive center to what you're playing?
Well, if I can once again call back to Indiana Jones, he chose poorly.
He chose poorly.
Poorly, man.
Like Nicolas Cage, when people turn him into like fucking just memes, right? And go like, oh, it's so weird he like does this. You could interview him at any moment on any film and he would explain to you every single thought. And even if it's insane, there's an inner logic to it. And Momoa is just like, oh, what if I did like Nicolas Cage shit?
I don't like the performance.
don't
I do
either.
like the Spanish Step sequence and
Yeah.
the general chemistry, the kind of like Tom having to put it all together with Haley Atwell.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't do whatever this is.
Yes.
where he's like, come on, drive, we'll figure it. And she's like, I don't drive minis through alleyways like with a plum
I
like you do.
I like the aspect of him teaching her.
Pickpocket. That's what pickpockets is what I do.
In rewatching 3, which I have more of an appreciation for than I did before.
Good movie.
Good movie. I really liked the ending shootout where he is technically dead.
Right.
And Michelle Monaghan has to.
He's like, now do this. No, right, with a gun. Right.
Has to follow his tutelage and shoot people.
But this is also the sequence that starts with him pretending to be her lawyer, correct? Or does that come later?
I think that's when
the next.
No.
That's he breaks her out of prison, and then this whole chase ensues.
And he like directly kind of pegs her whole story.
Yeah.
Right? Where he's just like, you grew up very poor, you lusted for the finer things in life, or at least the illusion of the finer things in life. You're always on the run. Like, he just gets her, completely reads her correctly.
And me, too.
Yes.
Basically reading me correctly.
Yes. Creates this uneasy balance of just like, to a certain degree, she's starting to surrender to him a little bit more.
Right.
You also find out that Morales, what's his character's name? Gabriel. Like, told her about Tom Cruise. Told her about Ethan Hunt.
Told who about
that the scene where you think like, oh, he's winning her over with this magic proposal. She was like, I got your like face on a printout in an envelope.
Oh yeah, sure. The entity or whoever.
Right. And that everyone who was hired, right? She didn't speak to Gabriel, right? But everyone who was hired by the entity was just like, oh, I never heard a voice. It was always text communication.
Yes. Gabriel also, it's a biblical reference, right? He's the voice of God, basically. He's the archangel.
Okay, so we go from Rome to Venice, and what happens in Venice is that the entity throws a baller party.
Right, but this is where Ilsa shows up.
Yeah.
Tom hugs her. They're both like never been to Venice before.
Yeah.
That seems hard to believe.
Does seem hard to believe, but hey, whatever. Never went to the festival?
I know.
Come on.
Okay, so I had a lot of questions about this party. What was the theme?
The theme was the entity.
Okay, because there were a lot of puffy shirts.
That's kind of the entity's thing.
He's got real David Copperfield vibes.
Okay.
He's throwing it back.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm making him a he, but it's
Vegas magician.
Let's say that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Okay. And there were some like Cirque du Soleil-esque dancers.
Yeah, big time entity shit. Well, look, entity hired Paris directly or indirectly.
Right. Yeah.
It's a part of the mood board.
The entity's got interesting taste.
Yeah. I like the entity. I think they have interesting points.
Why do you like the entity? The entity is so bad.
No, they're cool.
The entity also, it's like against everything you stand for, Griffin.
What do I like?
Like craftsmanship.
I do love that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're very anti-AI, I feel.
Yeah.
I know, but there's something about the entity that kind of wins me over. There's a warm touch.
Okay, I finally found a picture of Pom Klementieff as a kid.
Okay.
She has like a really
she's cute.
Oh, she's
I
very
just scrolled
cute.
through like 5 years of her fucking Instagram. I was like,
seems
surely
like she has a tragic childhood.
Incredibly tragic.
Oh, that's
Yep,
I don't want her. That's
Yep.
very sad.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it is, but I'm already sad.
I mean,
We're not going to get into it. It's bad. You can read it. Yeah.
Okay, so party in Venice, and at first it's a fake out because you think the party is being thrown by the White Widow.
Yes.
Right. Vanessa Kirby, who's back and is doing her whole, I'm a naughty girl, aren't I?
World's greatest.
Do you want some weapons?
You're John Locke, right? Or are you?
And then
world's fanciest
sort of insinuates that she fucked Ethan Hunt, and I'm like,
that didn't happen.
Get out of here.
Yeah,
It
no
feels
way.
like it's a mutually beneficial lie for both of them to
Yeah.
pretend that it maybe
We had
happened.
sex, didn't we? And he's like, sure.
Big
time.
Yeah, there's no way.
Oh, yeah. In and out. That's how it goes, right?
Sometimes side to side. No, yes.
It's very...
Sort of bumping against each other like this. Like,
Counterclockwise.
yeah. Vanessa Kirby, post-Oscar nom, feeling herself,
Yeah.
I feel like, right?
Yes. Yeah. A lot of fun.
Yeah, she's fun.
Yes. But it boils down to this
Excited
thing.
to see her as Josephine in the
Yes.
Napoleon movie.
Cannot wait for that movie.
Ethan starts
Same.
to put it all together. This is the entity. The entity has become like fully empowered,
Mhm.
is reaching out to everyone, is the one who's pulling all the strings on all of this.
And the entity is present at the party.
all around them.
Yes.
They're partying inside of the entity, basically.
Yeah.
And the entity, and it's all, and I think this is why this movie maybe hasn't, it is a lot of these circular conversations, a bunch of people in a room going kind of like, well, what you want is this. And they're saying, well, yeah, but the entity wants this. And it's a lot of like guesswork and
it's very talky.
Alliance making.
But
it's
talky in a way that I am very nostalgic for, where I was just like watching this several times. I was like, Jamel is going to love this movie so fucking much. Because his podcast, Clear and Unpresent Danger, is basically about like reliving this era of movies that no one makes anymore, where you're like, these films that were often categorized as like action movies or thrillers and were 95% tense conversations in office rooms, where people have these circular conversations where they're like, do you understand the implications of what you're proposing right now?
Right.
And just like great character actors throwing heat against movie stars.
Right.
And this has that, and also unbelievable action. Fewer action sequences than the last couple of Mission movies.
I guess.
But on a scale where you're just like, we're really going to complain about this being skimpy?
Yeah.
This movie shows you like
action.
5 of the greatest things you've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's a longer movie.
Yes.
And so I guess the action might feel also more spaced out because of that.
Yeah, and I do think it's like the haunted quality to this film is like, because even Fallout's like starting to go like, Ethan, is this shit catching up with you, right? And feels a little darker, more ominous than the previous films. This movie in particular, I think, is arguing your whole time might be over. Everything you've ever fought for might be just irrelevant in 5 minutes.
Sure. Right.
You know?
And it's similar to Top Gun as well.
Yeah.
We don't need people anymore.
Right.
Right.
This is all going to get handled by computers now.
But the implications in this movie aren't like the military is going to change. It's like the entire face of the earth might change.
You know, I'd rather that everyone chill out and read a book.
That's what I would like. Let me clarify. I don't actually like the entity, but I am going to defend to the ends of the earth the entity as a villain for this movie.
Oh, sure.
Who I find so thoroughly terrifying.
Oh,
Me too.
for sure.
In
think
its
it
nebulous
works.
form without ever feeling non-specific to me. For how many fucking stupid blockbuster films we've seen where the villain at the end is some giant evil cloud, right? And you're like, what is this?
That's true. There's bad versions of this thing. Yeah.
The entity, and what I think this movie does very well is like sometimes it is visualized. Sometimes you are very clearly aware of like, oh, fuck, it's the entity copying Benji's voice, right? But then other times in other scenes, in banal scenes, I'll just sit there and I'll be like, fuck, the entity's probably listening to this, right?
Well, yeah.
Like, I think this movie is...
sequence where, is it Luther or is it Simon Pegg who puts the car on auto drive?
Yes.
And then
you got freaked out
I
because you were
freaked
like,
out.
you
I'm
can't do that.
I was like, the entity's going to crash the car.
It's so successful in the construction of this movie is it just sells you that fear
Nothing is
so
safe.
thoroughly that you just start to question everything in every scene.
Yeah.
And you understand the characters questioning, and when they're not questioning, you get worried. Sometimes you're worrying about something that's not a problem, but maybe it is.
I thought the scene where Tom is running through the corridors of Venice's back alleys and getting lost because it's fake Benji giving him directions was very effective.
And they're like tricking him into doing one of the scenes that he knows how to do.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, it's a fucking dead end.
At the party,
We're distracting you.
Gabriel is very much like, it is Gabriel speaking for
Yes.
the entity. Like, one of these girls is going to have to die.
Yeah, that's your choice.
That's your choice.
I know
blah,
your
blah,
whole
blah.
deal. You don't like people dying.
And as he's running through the, alleys of Venice, Lauren Balfe's excellent score is swelling.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Which, let's also say, this movie uses its score a lot less than the franchise has. I think the car chase in particular mostly plays with just
No score.
the sound,
I
the sound
don't
effects,
remember. Sure.
which
sure,
I
sure,
love.
sure.
It's like very gripping that you're not being pushed along
Yeah.
emotionally. You're just hearing.
Can we confirm or deny that the theatrical experience we had, were we in rumble seats?
We were in rumble seats.
Yeah, we were in
Okay.
Dolby Prime.
Yeah.
And their seats would rumble with the
Because
sound.
that was insane.
It's not full 4EX like choreography, but the seats shake.
loved it.
It's
Oh,
great.
I thought it was
yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was especially loud during the train, unsurprisingly.
Yes.
Yes. But no, he's running around.
Mhm.
And first Gabriel is fighting Grace,
Yes.
but then he sort of knocks Grace out,
These
and then
cool knives.
he does. He's got these 2 flick knives.
Yeah.
Did you like that, Ben? You're a switchblade boy.
Wait, what knives? I don't remember.
He has the two knives.
He's knife fighting them on top of the bridge.
Yeah, that's how Rebecca
Yes,
Ferguson
oh,
died.
yes,
Stabbed.
Yeah.
And then she's
And then-
Ilsa's fighting him. The score's going nuts,
Doesn't
and I'm
Palm
like, this
have
is
a really
it.
long sword too?
She has a long sword and a cane, kind of, and like Palm's distracting Ethan for a while.
Yeah.
Gets rid of her, doesn't kill her. He lead pipes next to her.
Yes.
Right. And then she candlesticks.
Yeah.
So he gets out the rope. And then she gets out
Is this game of Clue?
the revolver. I was trying to remember all the weapons from Clue.
The wrench.
How do you feel, Griffin? You especially, the biggest Ilsa fan, I think, in the room.
Yeah, one of my favorite
About the fact that
characters in
she
modern
is
cinema.
murdered by knife. It was Gabriel on the bridge with the knife.
Yeah.
In Venice.
Yes. Professor Plum nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it? She's dead. Dead in the ground.
I think, look, I want as much Ilsa as I can get. I'm immediately saddened when she dies, and not just like emotionally at the loss of the character within the reality of
But
the
just
film.
the loss of Becca Ferd.
I'm just like, oh, she's not in the second half of the movie. She's not going to be in the next one. That's a bummer. But I also do think it's like, I do think it's impactful. And I do think, as much as I agree with you, David, and like very often death can be used as a cheap narrative crutch. And I also think there's a weird thing, especially in like big tentpole movies, where people associate death with stakes, period. And if people don't die, then there are no stakes. And if people do die, then the thing is important or serious, right? And that's not always the case. But I do think it's so baked into this character that like he has to lose someone for something to matter to him.
And I like the gambit of, like that's what the entity has realized.
Yes.
Like the only way to provoke this man is to kill his friend.
Which also makes the entity more terrifying.
More terrifying than Solomon Lane?
This is the thing. It's like the entity is constructing his hell.
Yes. Yeah, Solomon Lane, obviously, I feel like is almost a swing at this kind of a character. Because like Solomon Lane has no personality.
Right.
Basically just exists to be like evil and chaotic, like wants to torment Ethan Hunt.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's Sean Harris and you can like put him in a box.
Yeah.
And the entity is like that removed, right?
The entity is also kind of like filmmaking by committee.
They literally put Sean Harris in a box.
Right. That's what's scary about the entity is you're just like, well, there's like no reason.
No, the metaphor is fun.
Right. Yeah. And it's just done the math.
I have to assume
it's worked out every possible like branching option of how you react in any situation. Right. It's anticipated.
Look, I'm looking forward
to
the McQuarrie, 6-hour exegesis of, how blah, 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 blah. But like, I imagine they began with this AI concept, right? Like the sort of like trying to hit on like, what's the next threat that's plausible in the sort of espionage, right? Like AI. They did a good job because now everyone won't shut the fuck up about AI ever. And this movie's coming out right as that's all happening.
They were ahead of the curve. But like Ehrlich walking out of the movie said, like, so Cruise hates streaming so much he made a movie where the algorithm is the villain.
Yeah. Yes, right. But it just works. It's great.
It does. But it does feel like that's part of what it's going against is like it's pushing these sort of narrative beats that he doesn't want. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
But she does die. She's dead. Rip.
And then this is the scene where they basically recruit Haley Atwell.
Right after.
Right.
Yeah.
They're all sort of grieving.
They're all grieving. And that's what they pivot to. And I think that's so clever.
Yes.
That sort of, look, I mean, some people probably will roll their eyes at like, oh, one lady's gone. So now the lady slot's open.
Look, if I have an overarching criticism of this franchise is that it will not allow more than one woman to exist on the team at any given point in time. It is just constantly like, well, then if you're gone, then you can come in sort of shit. It's not like this is only starting in this film.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we already talked about all that, but I just like the idea of like, that's what IMF agents are. IMF agents are, and she'll be a great one.
Yes.
What is her next mission though? After this is when they start working on the train, right?
Yeah. It's immediately pitching the train and you see what you think is the start of the mission. And then she stops it and she's like,
wait, this is
the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
That is really clever.
And then they start to pull back on the amount of tech they use.
Which they do in Ghost Protocol.
Yes.
And they pull the same trick that they do in Ghost Protocol of like, fuck, the mask machine broke.
Right.
Yes.
Which is always fun.
Yes.
But
in this one, you're also adding the element of like, can they trust any of the technology?
Right.
Sure.
They're using a lot of analog.
Right. They start cracking their laptops over their knees, you know?
Yeah, they start like using a Cold War weather satellite.
Yeah.
I like the you see the CIA have moved to some bunker where it's all CRT.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes. All
Fucking
that
rules.
VFX.
Yeah.
So good.
Cary-All was, by the way, has the smoothest face I've ever seen in this movie. He's the CIA director now?
No, I think Czerny is now the CIA director in this movie. Of course, he's the IMF secretary in the first one.
Yeah.
Elwes, I don't really know what he's another high up
Secretary of Defense?
Maybe he's Secretary of Defense.
Yeah.
He's some high up person.
Yes.
And he on the train seems to be sort of in league with the AI, right?
Yes.
Or at least he's sort of like, I'm the only person who knows what that thing opens. I know about this sub.
It's fucking Ark of the Covenant. It's like I would fucking, if I had this, I could control it and I would rule the universe.
But the entity kills him.
Yes.
For knowing too much, essentially.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Rather than ally with him.
Yes.
So it's the Orient Express, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Chugga, chugga, chugga.
Mm-hmm.
Choo choo.
Going through the mountains.
Mm-hmm. And their
It's
plan.
an actual steam or coal engined
It's
train.
a steam train.
Right.
Yes. It's a tender engine, technically.
They have the
So
mass
you would call it?
machine.
What does that mean?
Well, you know how. Well,
Thank
you
for
probably
taking-
heard of
Sorry,
Thomas
I was
the
going to move on.
tank engine.
Familiar.
But the tender engine is what you think of as the classic steam train, where it has a gigantic tender, is what it's called, full of coal, its own fuel.
They
that
call
you
it
then-
a tender?
Yes.
Is that like the pit where the coal goes, where you shovel
No,
the
it's
coal?
the big container of coal that's like on it.
So, like, if you ride the Orient Express now,
I think it is a steam train. Isn't that the
but
idea?
there are like dudes there shoveling coal into it the whole time.
Yeah, like here's a train.
It's just like a ton of murder.
Here's a train, right?
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
This is the tender. The sort of back bit that holds all the coal.
Gotcha.
okay.
And like a tank engine doesn't have that. And they can't go as far.
Okay, it's
Right.
it's the car that holds.
The coal. Because you gotta keep.
Yeah.
I mean, tiring.
It's like an auto feeder.
So their plan on the Orient Express is Haley Atwell is going to
Be the White Widow.
transform into Vanessa Kirby.
Right.
Right.
Oh, because we forgot to mention there's that moment in the Entity Party where Tom Cruise is just like, you don't understand the decision that is being placed before you. This is not about whether or not you can get rich or who's like zooming who or whatever. This is like the fate of humanity.
Right.
Don't fucking turn the tide this way.
Don't they allude to that also she has these family secrets that she doesn't want to get out? Like there's some leverage over her in some way.
Yeah, but she's also one of these people where it's like she's like the world's fanciest fence, right? And she's just like, I don't cast judgments. It's highest bidder. You know, I'm not doing anything. I just connect people. I just like, you know.
So a question I had,
I'm looking up the Orient Express.
because Vanessa Kirby, the way that they distinguish the two Vanessa Kirbys is Haley Atwell has brown eyes.
Right.
And Vanessa Kirby has very
Intense blue
eyes.
Yes.
And I was just wondering, have they done that in any other movie where the eyes are
usually
a tell?
they are putting in
Yeah, I've
contact
never
lenses.
noticed it.
I think they're mostly doing it as a cinematic convention of like just so you know who's who.
But did
Right.
did we
Because-
need that?
I don't know that we did, but I kind of like the effect.
I did too.
You have to buy that Henry Czerny doesn't
Yeah.
remember what color her eyes are, but I buy that. I know what her eyes look like because I watched the movies.
Yes.
He doesn't watch these movies.
No, he's not a Vanessa
But
Kirby fan.
what about her
He should
her
be.
little
Yeah.
her little
She's great work.
her little
Consistently.
henchmen? She has like her dudes. They
That's-
would know.
Right.
Isn't
Well-
one of them her brother?
Does Sigourney Weaver realize that Dave has a different penis when she sees him in the shower, or has she just not fucked him in so long that she doesn't remember?
I
what
don't
his
think
penis
Honestly,
looks
I could
like?
talk about this for hours.
It's the scene in Dave that drives me the craziest,
Yeah.
but I love it as well.
No, and I think that scene actually leans into the ambiguity in a way
Right.
that's interesting.
What if their penises just look similar?
Maybe their penises look. There's
she
there's
has
so
a
many.
reaction.
But she
There's
has a
only
reaction.
so much
There is a
variety.
beat. We're not saying there's a thing that
There's
isn't
some
acknowledged by the
variety.
movie. He turns around in the shower and she looks at
She
it.
looks at it.
And she has a beat and you can't quite tell what she's thinking.
And I've
then
always
he
taken it-
plays, is she thinking that my penis looks different?
Right, but then I take it as her being like, his dick looks better than I remember.
Yeah. But
Am
do
I forgetting
just,
that I used to
Right.
be attracted to this man, and
Yeah,
this is sort of
yeah.
stirring something
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
Sure.
Or is she like, well, that guy's got a fucking different dick. This is not my husband. You know, like, you know, like it could be a million things.
Or is it like, did my husband add foreskin? Like, what was there a fundamental?
That's the truly unspoken thing if there's some fundamental change.
Right.
They don't mention it again.
They don't.
But it's a great moment.
It can't be
in a
foreskin.
5-star movie.
You don't know.
That's too drastic.
You don't know. There's a lot of options.
5-star.
It's why that movie is good.
Yeah.
It's why it's good.
And Ving throwing heat
in that movie.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
In the Ving canon?
Should I have watched Dave for the 4th of July?
There's nothing wrong with watching Dave.
Yeah, you should watch Dave every day.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Watch Dave every day.
No downside there.
Yeah.
So,
what was I gonna say?
Yes. Why doesn't the henchman realize it? I don't know.
I kind of like that they're all like just inattentive enough. They're not detail-oriented people, right? But their plan was supposed to be that Atwell and Cruz would go undercover as White Widow and henchmen. But the mask machine breaks down after White Widow, so Cruz can't get on the train. They all know what he looks like. She can go undercover. He's got to find another way onto the train. A thing I think Kirby plays unbelievably well is Atwell
Smash
not
Brothers. Sorry.
And she's with Piranha Plant, who's not even like, it's kind of like a weaker gimmick.
No, I'm sorry. Go on. What does Vanessa Kirby play well?
Atwell not being very good at the impression.
Right. She's pretty mediocre.
Because every other time in one of these movies we have seen someone do the mask routine, the implication is, well, they fucking mastered this. They're a master of disguise. They're a regular pistachio disguisey. They can pull off anyone, right? Haley Atwell's like, I don't fucking impersonate people. I don't wear masks. What are you talking about?
She's just sort of being like, yes, I am naughty.
Yes.
Can you sign this specific thing saying that Haley Atwell is innocent forever?
Yes.
That's my one demand.
Yes. So that's going on. Atwell's sort of learning how to own the nitty gritty of being an IMF agent, all the sort of like weird theatrics of it, while Cruz is trying to figure out how to get onto the train.
So how is he going to get onto the train?
Well, there's only one way to do it, which is, what do they call it? Speed kiting or something?
Yes. Fuck. What do they call it? Ben, do you remember this? Ah, fucking hell.
No, I don't.
I thought the kites were to get him off the train.
Both.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Because there's the kite off the... What he ends up doing, a friend of the show, a participant in this episode, Patrick Willems, pointed out, I think very wisely, he ends up basically having to drive a motorcycle off the Paramount Mountain.
Right.
In the same summer where Indiana Jones can no longer do the transition from the Paramount logo to the first image, it does feel kind of telling that Cruz is sort of like going like, how do I get off this fucking mountain? And the only way is right up to the top and off it. In a move that's sort of him saying like, hey, I just want you to remember, I'm the king of Paramount for all time. Remember when Sumner Redstone tried to end our fucking overall deal? He's dead and I'm the biggest movie star in the world.
Right.
Yes. But yes, then he does this kiting thing, which I watched some video, one of these behind the stunts videos.
Where they're like, it's much more dangerous than skydiving,
He's like,
diving.
It's a very particular dangerous
like,
sport.
What the fuck are you talking
about?
You can't just do a thing and call it a sport.
Right. You're like, it's not skydiving. It's like being close to the ground with a bigger...
You're looping around, I guess, and stuff. You're on this like...
So, sorry to interrupt, but I just remembered
Please interrupt.
a thing that Ben told me.
What's that?
When we saw this movie. There is something that Ben has in common with Ethan Hunt.
Interesting. Go on.
Ben's looking at me like he has no idea what I'm talking about. You've gone skydiving.
Yeah.
That's true. We've talked about this, I think.
Yeah.
Yes. You've gone skydiving.
But you've never done this thing, whatever the fuck this is
Whatever
called.
the fuck this is, no, definitely not.
Yeah.
Because this is like short range, right? Like, what are they like? What's the other more common example of base jumping?
Right.
Right.
No, I would never fuck with that.
Right.
I feel like I would not be able to get off the motorcycle cleanly. You know?
No, look.
I would not be able to do any of these things.
I would describe the whole sequence of events as impressive.
I'd be good at the mask wearing stuff.
I might call them,
I think,
impossible missions. Yeah.
This train sequence is... I think all the action sequences in this movie are good.
Mm-hmm.
Doing an action sequence of Mission Impossible has become a fairly high-stakes thing, in my opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tough to top the best, the Burj Khalifa, the Opera House, right?
Yes.
The ones that people rewatch and remember.
Yes.
But I do think this is a crowning achievement. this whole train sequence for them.
I would agree. It's just it's really good stake setting. Like beyond the stunts themselves, it's just he's always really good at the kind of thing that like Spielberg was always best at, of just like setting up 7 obstacles and keeping you super aware of all of them. You're constantly just like, you know, where everyone is in relation to everyone else and what the objectives are and what needs to be done, what could go wrong and what could go right. And there's like the thing where you're just like, I know what's going to fucking happen. Haley Atwell's going to be in danger and Cruz is going to fly through the window at the absolute perfect moment. Like, of course. He's struggling to get on the train. Of course, he's going to land perfectly in a way that solves 3 problems at once. And still, when it happens, it's the most satisfying shit in the world. The audience applauded.
Because it's what they wanted. They applauded because something they wanted.
They've been waiting
been
for it.
shown to them.
Yes.
Another thing, I think this.
You guys keep talking. I am not doing a bit, and no one's going to knock on the door. I simply have to pee.
Okay.
I promise.
Okay.
Okay. And I promise, if someone knocks on the door when he's in the bathroom, I quit the show. Forever.
So, does this happen on the train that Gabriel comes out of a coffin?
Yeah, we saw. Yes, right. His computer coffin.
Yeah, but he's also connected to some sort of like gas mask.
He's like mainlining entity.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting. I want to know more about this.
I feel like, or my interpretation is, he's absorbing the world's information.
Correct.
Because he's obsessed with truth.
Right.
And this idea of knowing the ultimate absolute truth.
Right.
And so I think he's, for what the human mind can take,
right,
taking it all in.
But he's sucking it in, like
he's getting extra oxygen, right? And like he's just like taking in just all the world's information.
Here's what I like about the Mission Impossible movies, right? Like stuff like this, or what was Ethan Hunt's past. I'm like, if the next movie explains him to me further, I trust that the way they would do it would be interesting to me. But also, if they never dig into this further, the implication of it is interesting enough for me. Mm-hmm. Where I'm like, I'd be happy to know the answers. I'd also happy to be like, remember he like sleeps in a computer coffin? Whoa. And he gets some power from it?
Rebecca Ferguson just walked in.
Jesus Christ.
Hello.
Do you have thoughts on this, David? What is Gabriel doing when he's sucking in the entity in a coffin?
I don't know. I mean, I think the simplest explanation is, he's getting his instructions, right? And that's fine.
I would just love to live in a future where I can mainline information like that.
I wouldn't. I want to know less.
I'm gonna be a no on that.
I am with
thumbs
you.
down.
Yeah, I just want to like read a book in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like,
so you're only living
ingest
like the
it all.
Matrix, where it's like, and then you're like, I can fly a helicopter.
Right. You want to know kung fu.
Instead of sitting up all night just going down a Wikipedia rabbit hole, I could just be like, okay, now I know everything about that random war.
Right.
Yeah.
My first move would be, let's take all websites down. I don't trust myself to have them.
So you want a new Dark Age?
Correct. I'm just like,
I'm not opposed.
If they're there, I'm going to go to them. And I'm going to look up dumb things. I'm just going to waste my fucking time.
We'd all be out of jobs.
Yeah, whatever.
What would we do to make money?
Analog. What's the podcast analog? We'll send out cassette tapes.
Sounds
We'll send out cassette tapes in the mail. It'll be fucking underground.
That'd be cool.
It does feel
should
like...
Should we press a fucking record
of
someday?
us talking?
Yeah.
That seems like an insult to the material that is vinyl. To scratch our voices into it. It's just cruel.
All of our best of moments.
Yeah. The vinyl is like, what is this?
They should do a vinyl as just the ad reads.
No.
Yeah.
Sales I'm seeing
here.
Oh,
sales. We'll do an ad read for it. Pump up sales. It just excites me that I feel like the next movie is setting up them having to go even further in a direction where it's like, we are completely off the grid. Mm-hmm. We are afraid of technology. We need to figure out alternate ways around everything.
Right. They were using a wood computer.
That is my dream.
A wood computer?
Yeah. Fucking courier pigeons.
I just like
I
made this computer out of a tree.
Yeah.
What if they start doing telegram
Yeah, good. Morse code?
Morse code.
Yeah. I hope there's a ton of knocking in the next movie.
Even smoke signals.
Paramount executives hold head in hand.
Yeah.
Well,
the entire movie is Morse code.
A very cool, low tech bit that they do in this movie is when Tom is in the desert and he signals to Ilsa by Doesn't he like flash his like a knife or some like a mirror
just the
at
reflection,
the light and or at the sun, and she that was cool. More of that stuff.
I just want Luther saying like, we're gonna go off the grid. I'm sitting on a tree stump now.
Yeah.
No metal chairs for me, Ethan.
Everyone's riding bicycles in the next movie. Yeah. Cool stuff. Oh, and then the train. So a bridge blows up.
Yeah, which is just the shot from the general.
Yeah.
Feels like an overt homage.
And
both of them have talked about how much inspiration they take from Buster, and then being like, what are the things we haven't gotten to do yet? Blow up a train. And this one shot of the bridge collapsing feels like the shot from the general. And then it turns into the sequence from Lost World Jurassic Park ×5. Where one by one, the cars are tipping over and they're slowly trying to get their way out of them.
It's a dream.
It's so good.
And the fun of every time they get out of one car, it falls to the ground calamitously and loudly, and your nerves are all jangled. And then it's like, okay, we got to do it again.
Right.
Like, because
keep
getting
physics,
cars.
you feel it. You really feel it. And like every car.
And this sequence uses more CGI than a lot of the movie does because of just, it's impossible to pull off. But even still, they're selling the physics of it really well. They're building the tension really well. When they like get into the next car and you're like, fuck, it's the kitchen car.
I just thought everyone was going to get burned by oil.
Yes. And there's the moment where he's having to convince her to jump and save Palm's life, but it's like him saying I know this seems impossible.
But we can do it together.
Right.
Basically.
You have to trust me versus the thing that feels like the safe thing to do. You need to do the insane thing.
You need to do the insane thing and you need to believe in me versus, believing only in yourself or whatever.
Right.
Not trusting anyone.
But this is when they save Palm as well.
They save Palm. They pull her up.
Yeah.
Shea Wiggum is back and he's there.
So we haven't talked about him.
I have in my notes that
you
yelped when he showed up on screen.
You clapped.
I clapped. I love him. I think I'm not the only person on earth.
No.
Who's a Shea fan, right?
I'll say this. When
he puts in the work.
When he started, I feel like early 2000s when I started seeing him pop up and stuff. He was one of those guys where I was like, this guy's doing too much. And he is a guy where it's like, it almost felt like when he was younger, he was trying to play grizzled, and he has aged into it so well.
So what didn't you like him? What are you thinking of?
The one I think of, and
First thing I really noticed him in was Boardwalk Empire. I know he'd been around before.
Yeah. A movie that I don't even blame him for that much because I don't think the thing is good, and I think his part is particularly bad. But Wrist Cutters, a love story.
Well, that's a bad.
Wow,
Correct.
I forgot about that movie.
Where he's essentially playing the guy from Go-Go Bordello.
God.
That whole thing's a nightmare.
Just words I don't want to hear.
No, absolutely. But I just remember being that one where I'm like, this guy's doing a lot of shit.
Yeah.
He's really good in All the Real Girls. That's the early one he's incredible
Oh,
in.
yeah. He is really good in that. I forgot he's in that.
Right. So I thought he was great in that. But fucking his career goes back to Tigerland.
Yeah.
Then All the Real Girls he's great in. And then it's like this run of, Lords of Dogtown is one.
Pride and Glory. He could play a cop. He could play kind of a bartender.
Right.
He's in Fast and Furious 4.
He is. And then they bring him back in 9.
For 6 and 9.
Yes.
As like a FBI guy.
Port of Call, New Orleans.
He just starts to become one of those guys where I'm always happy to see him.
He just ages into the exact guy he wanted
in,
to be.
Kong Skull Island, which is not a movie I like, but I think he's having fun in that.
And
he's excellent in Wolf of Wall Street.
Very natural. He sells this stuff really kind of honestly. Eben Moss
really
Backrack.
I
was talking about this with my brother as another guy who was just like, when he was younger, it felt like he couldn't wait to seem a little more world weary.
Yes.
Like, are we talking girls or pre-girls?
Pre-girls.
I don't know him from anything.
He's in like the Royal
Girls.
Tenenbaums. He's been around forever.
He's a bellhop in the Royal Tenenbaums. He's mid-40s?
Yeah, 46. Yeah. Yes.
That's the thing. Girls was the first moment where it was like, this guy now looks the way he's always wanted to look. He's finally gotten a little bit of edge on him. He was like a little too pretty.
He's just one of those guys.
Lola Versus? Is he in Lola Versus? Am I right about that? Remember Lola Versus?
I mean, I don't want to. But I do. He's just one of those guys where I'm like, as much as him as you want to give me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Shay's Mona Lisa Smile.
Yeah, this is the thing.
He played Mona Lisa in it. He has a beguiling smile.
He is in Lolaverses.
He was just kind of like handsome indie boy for a while. You could tell how much he didn't like it.
Yeah, because he is pretty, but he more wanted to play stressed out weirdo dirtbags, and now he's
same with Shea Wiggum, where it's just like all this guy wants to play is stressed out. And I do think, as opposed to a lot of the guys who like come up against Ethan Hunt, who have like a little bit of their juice themselves, right? Someone like Baldwin really being able to like cook and simmer a monologue. Shea Wiggum's like, I just want to get this fucking over with. This guy's so fucking annoying to me. And you have Greg Tarzan Davis in this scene I really like that some people might think is a little too on the nose, where they're like in the bar car of the train. And he's like, can you explain to me why we don't like this guy?
So that's what I love.
Are we set? It seems like we're setting him up to also join the squad. In the
I
next
would
movie.
think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the whole thing is Alec Baldwin in I guess it's in 5, really.
Sure.
Renner in 4. This is the common thing of like the guy who's starting out being like, I'm not in for Ethan Hunt.
Right.
I play things by the book over here.
Yes.
And by the end of the movie, they're like, he's kind of won me over. Like, I think this guy is kind of for real.
Yeah.
And Shea is put in that part.
Because everyone comes in and thinks like, this guy's just fucking showboating.
Yes. So he's like, but I feel like it's even more explicit in this one because the intelligence community is really sick of the IMF and Ethan Hunt, that he, by the end of the movie, is like, I think this guy might be for real. And I think you, Kittredge, might be kind of full of shit.
What are you doing on this?
Exactly.
Yes.
And because Shea Wiggum just feels like a salt of the earth guy and kind of feels like a sort of by the book guy in this, he plays that so perfectly where he's sort of like, man, fuck, like grudging, like, and I just love that moment at the end.
And Tarzan Davis just being a guy who's just trying to move his way up in the company. And he's like, look, I'm not trying to like rock the boat, but I genuinely just am asking questions. He's genuinely asking questions. Is there a chance this guy's just for real? That he actually is just acting in everyone's best interest, and maybe we shouldn't trust the people who are telling us that he isn't?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be in 8 too,
yes.
right?
Yeah, I think basically everyone in this movie's back in it, other than Becky Fergs.
All
right.
Maybe she'll do a flashback.
Twin sister.
Ooh.
Bring back her character from
Elsa?
MIB International. 3M lady with the zigzag hair.
So the movie basically ends there because at this point it's basically just, all right, we've succeeded.
Gabriel and Ethan have a fight on top of the train. That's the sequence that kind of echoes the big end set piece from the first Mission Impossible. And then
it also references Under Siege 2.
Correct.
And the Wolverine.
They do go into dark territory.
Right.
Yeah, they are in dark territory.
Right.
But
should also shout out Dead Reckoning, obviously, is, sort of like the manual analog means of navigation that existed before you could calculate longitude and stuff. And
I did not know what that meant.
The submarine says in the first scene, like, we're
Yeah.
navigating by Dead Reckoning right now.
That's cool.
And it's, if you want to get away from the AI.
We should mention Gabriel also has a watch that's like a countdown clock that basically when time's up, he's just like, I should jump.
Yeah, he does that, but it's also sometimes it's like, and he's like, time to neg someone,
Yeah.
right? Like it's telling him everything.
It's giving him his next move. Right. It's like Grand Theft Auto, like assigning him the next mission. But they're like fighting, and Cruz basically has him. And there's been this whole thing where Luther gives him this whole speech. Another moment that fucking Ving kills, where he's like, you cannot kill this guy. You cannot kill this guy. I know you want to. I understand why you're going to want to. And I think it is going to overtake you in the moment. It is betting on you doing that.
Right.
I know you think you'll be beating it and winning something, but we like really have to think about what it expects out of you. It's sort of a Summer of George thing where he's saying like, you need to do the opposite of what Ethan would do in every situation because it's anticipating you doing the thing. So he gets to the moment where he's got his knife up to Gabriel's throat and like blood is showing.
Yeah, he does draw blood.
Right. You think he actually might do it. Wiggum and Tarzan Davis come with guns. And even still are like, Ethan, just don't do Ethan shit. And he's just like, guys, do not fuck this up. Please listen to me. I'm Ethan Hunt. I'm the star of these movies. 7. We're already deep into production on 8. I'm telling you, I know how these work. You just entered into the franchise. And then watch goes off. He jumps into the back of a truck. He gets away. He doesn't get the key. Thank God.
Ethan has close-up magic to the key away from him.
Which you only find out at the very end.
Right.
but he has gotten away to live to make another Mission Impossible film.
Right. But I do think it's like, I've been seeing complaints about the part one-ness. And I'm kind of like, these movies always end with there's another mission. Like,
yeah.
There's not finality to Mission Impossible movies.
I could not be more sick of the 2-part sequel thing, and I'm fine with movies leaving things open-ended for the next one or whatever. I think it's more just in the planning of these things when you have to come up with 2 movies at once and you're dividing across 2 films versus each film being treated as, let's throw everything we have at this one, and then we'll come back to the table when this is done. And in a lot of the cases, that's what ends up happening. Like this in Spider-Verse, they're like, the story got too big, so we broke it into 2, and we thought we were going to do them back to back, and instead we really did the first one, and then we had to do the second one a lot later. And I'm like, then what's even the point here?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a fool's errand. Is there any... The closest is Lord of the Rings to like this working. You know what I mean?
I think people...
But like even that, they had to reshoot it a zillion times and all that. You know, it's like, this doesn't work.
It works... Look, it works better perhaps when you were dividing a book and you're just like, well, there is a starter text we were working with. Rather, if you're starting with a blank page, it's like, then come up with enough for the one movie you're making right now and then save some stuff for later. But much like Across the Spider-Verse, which similarly has a fucking Shea Wiggum throwing heat performance as Captain Gwen Stacy.
True.
And he has the scene where he sort of closes the loop on her arc that at least makes that movie feel...
She has an arc.
If not self-contained, you're like, there's a complete emotional journey that happens with her that makes it feel like a full meal, at least through a prism. I think the same final scene between him and Haley Atwell in this movie serves the same function, where they basically keep on pitching to her the like, there's going to be the moment where you have to say to him, I was told to make a choice and I'm choosing yes. And no matter what you've done to that moment, no matter how much they want to arrest you and throw you in the Hague, if you say that to them and say, Ethan told me to say this, they're like, fuck, we have to let you be an agent. You're on the good side of the law now, right?
You're right.
And this sequence has been so clearly traumatizing for her. That moment that you said that Haley Atwell kills, where it's like...
Her face is so good.
She goes through like 87 emotions in 5 seconds.
Of like, I can't believe he's actually asking me that. I think he means it.
Yeah.
How do I feel?
And she says...
I'm so stressed out.
Right. And you kind of expect the version of the scene where she like comedically goes like, I'm fine. And instead she's like, no, I'm not okay. And he's like, yeah, I get it. I've been there. I remember what it was like, right? So you're almost thinking she's going to push back in this moment, or she's going to turn away and go rogue on her own, or just be too overwhelmed by the whole situation. And the moment where she's like, I can let Ethan get away, which I need to do. There's only room for one, right? That's the thing. They only have the one escape.
The one parachute. Thing. Yeah.
And I'm going to make the choice. And when she makes the choice, it doesn't feel like she's saying that out of like a strategic move. In that moment, you suddenly see her go like, I think this is actually what I want to do. And everyone has to accept it. And I found that to be a pretty thrilling conclusion. As an emotional arc for this character across this movie, understanding how someone could start out the film in one place and actually by the end of it sign up for this insane fucking life.
Right.
I loved it. It made me so happy.
I'm so glad you loved it.
I did too, because I've been so bummed out by movies this year.
Yeah, you gotta love the good.
Yeah, well, movies need to be better.
Is this your number 1 of the year so far?
No, my number 1 of the year is Blackberry.
Oh,
Okay.
hell yeah.
I still need to see it.
Movie I think is incredible.
I mean, I love Blackberry. You know I love Blackberry.
I know you love
You
Blackberry.
know who else loves Blackberry?
Who?
My daughter. But not the movie. The
berries.
fruit.
Well, then pluralize it, my friend.
She's obsessed.
Weird for you to make it singular.
Here's the thing.
What? Only
She
one?
says, well, no. She'll eat lots of them. But she
What?
said Blackberry.
Okay.
Blackberry?
Blackberry.
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 Are you sure she's asking you to rent the movie? Because it's available PVOD. If she's saying it like that.
Maybe she wants you to take her to IFC
$20
Center.
rental.
It's still playing every day.
Yeah. No, it rules. That's my number 1. Full-Time the French movie, I think, is still my number 2 of the year.
Wait, what's... Oh, yeah, I really need to see that.
Fucking love.
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
Why didn't you bring me to see it then
I'm
if you love it so
sorry.
much?
This might be my number 3.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm very sorry.
That's a good question. Where do I put this?
Did I rank it after I saw it? I mean, look, I'm excited to see it again, but it was just like, it was such a movie for me. It gave me like all the thrills I want out of
All the thrills.
but also just like this like money up on screen, right? Like absolute movie star wattage. I do think there's this thing where it was like Rebecca Ferguson has felt like such a discovery in this franchise, right? where you're like, she was not on short list for these movies. They plucked her out of like a Showtime series.
Yeah, she'd done a
White Queen or
Right.
something.
The White Queen.
And then
Red
has
Queen.
become like one of our best, right? And then like Haley Atwell and Pom Klementieff are both people who have been like stuck in the Marvel thing. That's like this incredible platform, but then it sometimes ends up being a dead end for a lot of actors where it's like, well, what do you do now? And much in the way that I think he like used Cavill better than anyone has used Cavill. He finds these people where it's like, they're not really getting like the bespoke fitted outfit movie star role for them. Even if it's part of the ensemble. The thing that's purely just them selling it through sheer will and craft and wattage.
Watto.
And Watto. And it just throws me. And I think this movie has like actual...
Does it hold you? Does it kiss you?
It held me, it kissed me.
Does it kill you?
It did. No, I think it's like dealing with it. I think it's got provocative ideas. I think it is one of the only things I've seen talk about AI in a way that feels emotional rather than this sort of like speculative hand-wringing, you know, or trying to like game out where do we go from here, where it really is like, what does it feel like to live in a world where you just don't really know if anything's real anymore? And we've already been in like an aggressive misinformation age, and AI has just made all of that faster, and it's just speeding up at a rate that's like, I don't know, my cousin works in AI. I saw him in January when I was out in San Francisco. He's there in like the fucking...
AI is good, Griffin.
He was
I'm
not doing
an
that.
impression of a
And I
British
think he had a
person.
really interesting take on everything where he was very even-handed about it. And he was like, I think the good applications of AI are this. I think people trying to do this are wrong, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And it's like, I wonder if that's going to stick. If it does, it'd be to the detriment of that. Like, had a very even-handed view of all of it. But I think about that conversation, which was 7 months ago, and like everything he said to me has changed 87 times since then. And I don't know if it's for better or worse. I don't know where any of this ends up. But this movie like speaks to that in that way that like that golden age of like 70s paranoid thrillers, we're really like tapping into a moment of like grave uncertainty and distrust. And it didn't feel like it was, I don't know, a posture.
Griffin, my question to you.
Sure.
Where do you put it in your Mission Impossible ranking?
So we were just talking about this.
We're talking about with the Doughboys.
Yes. Because Weiger basically like defaults to Fallout maybe being his favorite movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think Fallout at this point, I have to tip the cap.
Yeah.
I love Ghost Protocol and have that number 2.
Right.
And those two are unassailable for me until further notice. My question was whether I put this above or below Rogue Nation, which is my third favorite.
Right. I think Rogue Nation is my solid number 2.
You've
I love
always
that.
loved.
For a long time, I liked it more than Fallout, even after Fallout's release. A lot of it is just that it's...
Fallout's just, at this point, you're just kind of like,
it's
Fallout runs
masterful.
the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I just love Rogue Nation being the Elsa movie. Maybe her twin sister's named Anna. Maybe they do Elsa and Anna.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
She has ice power.
I think the McQuarrie trilogy are my 3 favorites. And I think I put this at 3rd and Ghost Prot at number 4. But I think those 4 movies are kind of like fucking undeniable.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a fine thing to think.
Yeah. And it's like, you could say like, well, so then this is a disappointment if you're coming off of like 5 was better than 4 and 4 was better than 3 and 6 was better than 5. And I'm like, no, because I just like that they're trying different shit. I like that they are not trying to outdo themselves, that they are like pivoting into interesting directions.
Marie, do you have a ranking?
I don't know yet.
That's fine.
I will say
Do you have a favorite Mission Impossible movie?
I might have Rogue Nation as my number 1.
That's fine.
Rogue Nation rules.
That's fine.
I know Fallout's great. I like Cavill in that.
Mustache.
Pumping the
Yeah.
arms.
Yeah, that was cool. I am a defender of 2.
Mhm.
I think it's okay to acknowledge that it is not as good as the other movies in the
Sure.
Yeah, I
franchise.
think 2 it's second. Yeah, fine.
But
yeah.
anyone who's like, oh god, that movie's unwatchable.
No.
I'm like, what are you
But
talking
but 2
about?
lives at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
It's
Right, but I
belongs.
think
It has to.
I think all of the Mission Impossible movies are good.
Yeah, I agree.
I think 2 is a very flawed movie.
I like watching all of them though. There's
yeah,
things
I
I
like watching
like in
all
all
of
of them. Yeah.
Ben, do you have a favorite? Do you care? Do you want to go to sleep? It's kind of hot in this room.
It's kind of hot in this
Kinda hot in this room.
I don't know if I, have a favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But what's coming to mind right now is I have watched some of these kind of recently, and I think Rogue Nation really hit for me.
Mm-hmm. Hey, it's
Yeah.
a grower.
Also,
Much like Kevin Kline's penis and Dave, we'll never know.
That's what
We'll
she was
never
surprised. She was
know.
like, "You got it up
I
faster
thought
than he
this
used
was a
to."
grower.
This guy's
Now
looking like
he's got a shower.
He's got a shower in the shower.
oh my God.
That setup is also very weird. That presidential bathroom.
It's very weird shower. Yeah, it's
Five-star
designed only for someone to see your penis, and wonder, is that the penis I've always remembered?
Take a bullet for you, Dave.
That's a great movie.
It's a great movie.
Maybe we should second best
Behind
Draft day.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Draft day.
It's draft day.
Behind draft day.
I think it's one of those things where I'm like, I think that is his greatest accomplishment as a filmmaker, if that makes sense. Where
Really?
I'm like,
Over
that's,
Ghostbusters?
I'm like, that's the movie I give him the most credit for as a director, whereas like Ghostbusters is just kind of like everyone in the right place at the right time, and he made great decisions as like a traffic cop. I don't say to like diminish his role,
Sure.
but it's like he's balancing all these different voices. And Dave is just him like finding a Gary Ross script and being like, I'm going to make my fucking Frank Capra movie. And every performance is perfect.
Yeah.
Grodin, Kingsley, Linney.
Right.
Just across the board. Langella.
Yeah.
Kevin Dunn. I'm ready to announce that our next Patreon series will be Dave.
Just watching Dave.
And then meet Dave.
Oh, God. That's a real come
Are
down.
there any other Dave movies?
Good question.
Probably. Right?
Would
I
we
need to be
include
searched for
David's or just Dave?
I
No,
think
it's got to be
Dave's.
Dave.
Okay.
We watch all of FX's Dave.
Oh, no, I really don't want to do this.
Hi, I'm Dave.
Mike and Dave need wedding dates?
That sort of falls into Alien versus Predator category. It's like if we do a
Dave
Mike
Chappelle's
series.
block party?
Yeah,
It's billed specifically as
it
Dave.
could be part of the Daves.
There's a movie from 2023 called Bank of Dave.
Bank of Dave?
Yeah.
Well, now I've heard
Starring
of
Rory Kinnear.
it. Okay.
We're done.
We're done.
This is the kind of behavior that happens when we're done.
Yeah.
What's up, Ben?
Well, final thoughts.
Yeah.
The gas masks.
The little
didn't shout them
mini
out.
gas mask, very cool.
Yeah, this little
Fucking-
like nose
the-
pincher.
Oh, and also
yeah.
Design
the
of
gas
it.
bomb that he like throws theatrically into the air and then it goes like, poof.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very
And
cool.
it's like a green gaseous cloud,
gas.
like Chip Smith's ex-wife.
That's true.
Chip Smith, the entity has a lot of Chip Smith energy, I feel.
The entity, yes, absolutely. Yes. I think that's going to be a takeaway from a lot of people.
Yeah.
Where you're like, what's the entity's deal? Pass.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just wanted to say, I'm glad you accepted the mission.
Thank God, Ben. Thank God you.
How did we do timeline-wise? Is this 2.5 hours?
Was it 2.5?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's
Well-
around 2.5.
With ads, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Or at least close.
Box
Okay.
office, it'll be this. Sort of tracking around 90, 100, sort of the
Yeah.
highest ever
Really?
emission.
I heard it was like 87 for the 5-day, which is
That's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
no.
Nothing tracks at 87. Things track in round numbers.
I don't know. I was listening to the latest episode of The Town,
Okay.
and he did his little call sheet at the end. I know David just made a face,
Yeah.
but
You
I did not make a face.
You
I
don't need to
respect
explain it.
everybody
People
out
could
there.
hear the eye roll.
Uh-huh.
They could hear his eyeballs going.
yeah. But
Well, I
It
mean,
just-
Hollywood Reporter had it tracking at 90.
Okay.
Which would be the highest for the. It's not a franchise that opens high. It's
No.
always
No,
a
it
franchise
always
that
multiplies.
holds quite well.
that was
Right.
surprising to me when Top Gun Maverick was Cruise's biggest ever. Because I was
Yeah.
like,
He
what?
never had 100 million open.
He's
Yeah,
not an
it's insane.
opener in
No.
that sense of the.
I do think this is going to open over 100 is my prediction just because the summer has been a little bit underwhelming and it feels like this movie has more genuine excitement behind it.
Yeah, it's funny that yes. The box office is actually not really down at all, but it's partly because the spring was kind of hot.
Yeah.
And then the summer's been a little cool.
I also just think
Mostly because most of the movies have been released were not good.
that's the thing.
Huge issue.
Yeah.
Right.
As much as everyone wants to wring their hands, like Hollywood, you got to make movies
The
people
grosses
wanna
haven't
see.
been terrible. I just think there's been a little bit of a lack in enthusiasm. Right.
All right. It's okay.
Well, no, the tomato meter, 89 reviews, a 98%.
Dead
fresh.
Reckoning?
Yeah.
I'm just like, who?
Who didn't like it?
And
Oh.
that was calculated through Dead Reckoning, the tomato meter. They were
Yes.
like Dead Reckoning those tomatoes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm looking here, the Entity gave it 10 out of 10.
That's what it wants you to think it gave it.
Yeah. This is also a good time to announce we're really excited to be joining the Entity Entertainment Network, the EEN.
Streaming everywhere on every screen that exists in society.
Yes.
Next week, Oppenheimer.
Correct. Are we doing a Barbie episode? No, because we haven't covered her. She's an example of someone we'd wait to cover someday.
No, we'll do an emergency episode on Insidious the Red Door, of course. Patrick Wilson series begins here.
We've made this very clear. We're not doing emergency episodes anymore unless the door is about to be open, in which case we must be there to step through it.
I'm going to say, I don't know if you guys agree with me. We kind of already knew about the Narnia news. Like, this isn't new news, right?
It gotten floated and you were like, is this some dumb Netflix rumor, like a Twitter rumor? And now it seems
I just don't know why Greta Gerwig would think she can make an adaptation of a beloved young reader's book.
No,
I just don't know what she's never had any success in that sphere.
Funny, David, but
I don't think she thought that was funny.
Narnia.
She's angry. Her eyebrows are pointing down.
To me, that feels like a very British text.
What
is her take?
I don't know.
I'll say this. Like, 2 things in a row where you were like, do we need another Little Women? And she was like, I got a real take. And they're like, do we need a Barbie movie? And she's like, I got a real take.
Well, we don't know if the Barbie movie's good.
No, but she's coming at things with real takes.
Right. So I'm just curious. I'm like, what is your...
I'm assuming Narnia, she has some take, and I don't know what it is.
Chronic what? Cults of Narnia. What if she does that?
God. I forgot about that.
How could you forget?
Lazy Monday.
No,
I'm saying that would
late
be her.
afternoon.
Lazy Sunday was the original, and she's like, I'm going to take it to Monday. I'm going to start the whole week off lazy.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Remember when that was like the biggest video ever on YouTube?
Basically created YouTube. Next week, Oppenheimer. Week after that, back to Park. Which one will we be up to at that point?
Lady Vengeance?
We'll have done Lady Vengeance. So we're going to have I'm a Cyborg, but that's okay. Right after Oppenheimer.
Great.
Yeah. A nice episode.
A nice episode.
A real fun one.
A real fun one. Yeah. But I hope you all enjoy Dead Reckoning. And if you have your own thoughts, don't share them with us.
Griffin.
Share it with blankcheckpod at twitter.com.
Or on Blue Sky.
You can share. The internet exists. Share them.
I gave you that invite.
Yeah, thank you, David.
You're welcome.
The internet exists. You can share. You can put your thoughts out there. I'm saying don't just come at me and be like, well, I disagree.
All right.
I thought the Entity had bad points.
He's made that clear.
Thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you to Marie Bardi. And it's an Entity party this time. Thank you to Ben.
I want to go to a BENTITY party.
That's nickname
good.
now.
Yeah, I should host a party.
The BENTITY.
Where your AI
BENTITY party that I design and I just watch people or something from a different room.
Ben's birthday party was piercing themed, by the way. He had magnetic piercing so everyone could give themselves their own Bad Boy 2.0 era.
It was really surprising to see some people with like their septum pierced.
I thought Nelly had done it for real.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I fucked up a bit. We should just say.
Yeah.
Marie was trying to set up a bit where she was going to convince David that Griffin got his ear pierced.
We sent
at
a picture.
my party.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. A bunch of things about this. If you want to have this on air,
That it was a piercing party and that there was a piercing
Marie
artist
sent.
at
Now,
the
have you
party.
guys seen the other 2 episodes where he's trying to send a selfie and then the live picture reveals his asshole? Such a good episode.
Okay.
And so Marie sent a picture that was live, you know, how Apple, and in the live picture, you can essentially see Griffin affixing an earring, which is sort of hurt her case a little bit. Marie's doing the whole, he pierced his ear. Nelly did it at the party. And I'm like, sure, sounds like a bad party.
Apple.
An apple
Bunch
and
of
a
30
needle.
somethings piercing each other's ears.
Yeah, that's a good vibe.
And so then I'm just sort of doing the thing with Marie where I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, you got his ear pierced. And you're like, And I'm like, great. You know, my friends are lying to me in text message form. And then Ben on another thread is like, yeah, we have magnetic piercings. Blowing the bit anyway.
But let's also acknowledge that you went off into a separate text with Marie and went, confirm for me that this is
I was like, what is this? Because I was annoyed. I was like, why are you lying to me? I hate lies. I hate being lied to.
I mean, it was a little surprising to me, but I thought you looked good with an earring.
You know,
Well,
David,
I never disputed that.
I got a lot of
He
compliments.
got a lot of compliments.
Yeah,
we were hanging out with some fancy people.
And this was day 2, by the way.
Wait. Oh, okay. This was Should we blow up? I mean, yes, you were. This is not at Ben's party. Not that Ben's party didn't have fancy people. I'm sure it did, but you were.
I was at Ben's party, and very many fancy people.
We love them.
Responded positively.
But then
to my
the
fake
next
magnetic
day,
earring. The
you
next
were hanging
day,
out with very fancy.
We were hanging out with, dare we say it, several movie stars.
Yes.
And there was a sheet of gem stickers going around, and people were putting them on their face. And I went, the ear was working for me yesterday. Let me try it. And people kept on saying, I forgot they were stickers.
Yeah.
And you're kind of selling the look.
It looked good.
Several movie stars.
You have my blessing.
Thank you.
But maybe don't do it at a party. Maybe have a professional pierce your ear.
Why would I have a professional pierce my ear?
Why do it? Why not just do it as sweaty, drunken?
But I do think of like everyone we know. I think Nelly would do a good job.
Yeah, she would.
I'm not trying to say Nelly would do a bad job, but I think Nelly has the kind of, head on her shoulders that she would be like, maybe I shouldn't pierce ears while drunk at a party.
She was begging me.
She had a needle.
She said, get that ear over here. Get it over here. You can go to blankcheckpod.com for links to some real nerdy shit. Thank you to Joe Bowen, Pat Reynolds for our artwork, Lane Montgomery and the Great American Novel for our theme song, JJ Birch, Aidan McKeon for our editing, and I fucked
Alex
it up.
Barron.
Alex Barron and AJ McKeon for editing. JJ Birch didn't do shit this week. Enjoy your fucking vacation.
And your free shout out.
Yeah.
Jerk.
Yeah, we'll invoice you for that shout out later. Did I thank everybody?
We got to thank, of course, our delivery or our
Yes.
courier, Teo Olson.
Great performance, Patrick Willems.
We have to also, thanks Patrick Willems,
The voice on
who
the tape recorder.
And Marie owes you money for a broken tape recorder.
I don't think it's broken.
No, I'm joking.
But I did
It's
get.
just funny that you threw it.
It was about to self-destruct.
Did you have to deliver a micro cassette to him to record upon?
No, I just had him record with his own equipment.
And then you recorded off the computer speaker?
Yeah.
Pretty sneaky.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
But that was fun.
That was great.
I mean, it would have been cooler if it was a pair of Oakley glasses that you had to put on. And they had to
I
talk
looked
and talk
into
to you.
it,
And they exploded the second you took them off your face.
I do want to share though, just because it didn't end up delivering in time. I did in fact. I did in fact buy invisible ink and a little black light.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Wait, you should have.
what was the plan there?
The message would have been written in
Of
So-
course,
glow in the
of
dark.
course.
This message, correct.
What does it say
Then
again? Beneath the party? Or
I
whatever?
have an
Yeah.
invisible ink pen and blacklight to check my wedding invitations when people don't write in their names when they RSVP. It's written in invisible ink who each person is, and I've had to use it a couple times. So I'm just saying,
Wow.
I mean, I have so many questions.
we could have made this work, Ben.
But I didn't
I
wanna,
was
yeah.
thrilled to be surprised.
I should mention, I've already suggested to Marie that she change the theme of her wedding to the entity. I think it's an easy pivot. And I think your parents will be on board with it. Yeah. Anyway, thank you all for listening. And as always, I am genuinely worried to see what bits Ben has prepared for the Oppenheimer episode.